Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia.
Is this thing on? Welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's greatest podcast, Holiday Edition 2024, where exactly none of the topics have anything to do with the holidays. Spoiler alert. We've got an elite team assembled for you today. Think of these guys as the special forces of LSM, our last line of defense against boring podcasts, plus both really nice guys, as it so happens. And so I give you nice guy number one, the infamous Ben Smith, everybody. Yo, Ben, what's going on, my friend?
How's it going? I don't know how I'm the nice guy and also infamous.
Yes.
Those things seem like they're at odds with each other, but I'll take it.
I want you to have a little bit of both, a little salt, a little pepper.
Listen, any kind of title you want to ascribe to me, I'm just going to soak it up. That's just how I am. Whatever. That's fine.
Yeah, you go with that's a very strategic, this is why I chose my specific topic. We'll get into it.
Okay.
So this specific group of people who I think of as the chill guys, this is my chill crew in all of LSM. I'm not just talking about Constellation. I'm just talking about across the board. So I was very strategic in picking my topic, kind of curating it to who I had today. And me and Ben were just saying, we haven't done a pod in a little while together. Mm-hmm. So this is nice.
It's funny, Dagan, because when I was telling you before the show, I had three, like the only three I'm on in December, all like back to back to back. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which is fine, no problem. I just had to, work it out. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, what am I recording today, and what am I talking about? And I know everybody at the end of the year with all the different podcasts are getting ready for the holidays, but I yesterday, until about an hour before the recording, thought I was recording this, but I was recording Summon Sign Game of the Year.
Oh.
And then until last night when you messaged me to tell me your topic, for some reason, I thought that Micah had scheduled me again with Chris, because I've been on the last two with Chris. So in my head, I'm thinking it's me, Chris, and Cog. That's a combo we've never had before. And this might be a combo I don't keep track. But so until you messaged last night, I didn't even know I was going to be on with you. So, hey, it's all coming together here.
First of all, 3 days a row. We were just saying this, you're a tougher man than I. 3 days a row of podcasting. I've probably only done that a handful of times in the last 6 or 7 years. And I find it, you were pretty stoic about it. I find that absolutely exhausting.
Yeah,
that's tough.
Yeah, it's a different kind of exhausting. I was saying, like, I've had jobs where I dig ditches. It's not like that. Like, I'd take this over that any day of the week.
Labor.
Yeah, but it does have a different effect, because when you're done, you're like, well, I've hit my word count for the day.
There you go.
But Dagan, you used to go out to California, or Colin would come to you, and you guys would record like 8 episodes in a day or two, right?
Oh my God.
Wow. That's rougher than 3 days in a row, in my opinion.
Yeah, 12 episodes over the course of 3 days was the most knockbacks we've ever done. And that was exhausting. I just told my son that, who's 14, and he was so young when we were going, I was flying out to LA, Colin would fly here to Philly every few months. And my kids were little. They don't remember that. And my son was just like, holy shit, you did, like, it dawned on him. And I was like, yeah, that's what we did. I wasn't on the beach in Santa Monica. Like, we were in Colin's apartment. We went out for food twice a day, and we were just confined to his living room, and then we just recorded. Yeah, so that's a good point. And that was the last of vestiges of Colin insisting that we had to be in the room together. Ironically, just audio. We were off camera at that point. There was no video component to it.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But I gotta be honest with you. Although I think it would be really cool to do what Kind of Funny does and take a page out of that book, as far as like, if we could just make this full-time jobs and be all together, I would love that so much. Because I do think that brings the content to another level, but I don't miss those days of having to do the batches like that.
There's definitely something lost in the remote recordings, but I don't think it's enough of something to change everyone's lives over it. Like, I think it's still a good product when we're not in the same room.
Yeah, no, and Colin says, I'm sure Colin says the exact same thing as what you just said. That's his philosophy entirely. And, it's like it would, it would kind of level up the content, but not enough to warrant upending everybody's lives.
$1 million studio. And
all the overhead,
Yeah.
So well said, my friend. My other pal, kind enough to join us today. One of my favorites. I'm just going to be honest. Love talking to him. Love having him. Kind of a kindred spirit. Pee in a pod. All that stuff. Lord Cognito, everybody. What's up, Cog?
Dig, what's going on, man? Tired. Mm-hmm. I am getting to the finish line. The empty, the gas meter. I'm getting close to E. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting close. I'm looking for that check engine light.
Coming.
It's time for maintenance, man. This was the week I was looking forward to. I was like, okay, I just got to get through this week. And then you can get some downtime. Then you can relax. And these 2 more on the docket. So, like I said, Stelly and then IOP. And then I'm good. But I'm hanging in, man. I'm hanging in. Well-deserved rest will be coming up soon. So I'm looking forward to that.
Good. I was going to say well-deserved rest. Light at the end of the tunnel's in sight. Right? And that is, I was saying that last week or the week before, like that. And one of you, Ben, was not on. I'm not sure if you were on that, Cog. But I was saying that's like the energy going in. I think it was coming out of Thanksgiving, Black Friday, all that, heading into the holidays now, Christmas and New Year's, whatever you celebrate. Like the energy is just like, why do we have to work? Going through the motions. Why do we have to go to school? Why do we have to work? Like just trying to get to that proverbial finish line.
Yes, absolutely. Light at the end of the tunnel.
We're almost there.
Yes, sir.
Almost there. We just got to get through this. We get through this together.
This is a good group. Ben is in the building.
This will be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking forward to it. I was just telling the guys before we started rolling cameras here, I'm coming right off of work. Like usually I come off from work, I give myself an hour in between the day job if I can and, have a little lunch, get ready for the pod slowly. But I was just on a call with my art director like 30 seconds before I jumped on this. So it's like a real transference of like trying to get from one mindset, moving the energy from what I do, from my hand up into my mouth, which is hard because that's the thing. And you guys talk to me about this for a second. I don't talk that much on a regular day in my regular life going about my normal business. Podcasting is really a departure for me. It's not that I don't like to talk. I enjoy talking. It's just that I just find myself that, like my existence is not very skewed towards the verbal when I'm not doing this. Is it the same for you too?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
It is.
You enjoy it.
Yeah.
You enjoy having conversations. You enjoy podcasting. You're both very good at it, right?
I wouldn't say I enjoy having conversations, but
is that right?
I appreciate the compliment on the podcast. No, that's a joke a little bit, but no, I'm it makes you, not that I think I'm a comedian or that I'm an actor or anything like that, but like when you hear about that comedian, he's actually like super this way, even though all his movies are this, or that comedian that is actually really depressed, even though he's hilarious. Like it makes me think about like, yeah, I podcast a lot, and I podcasted since 2009.
Holy shit! You've
on
been
and off,
a long time.
And like I've always enjoyed that, and I've always been in positions with work or with things I've done around my town or whatever, where I've been a speaker or someone who talks a lot and meets with people. But like if I don't have to make a somewhat public appearance, I'd prefer just never to speak. Like my wife and I talk, but it's not like hours and hours, and I'm just not a conversationalist.
Mm-hmm.
I can have conversations, but it really is like specifically for podcasting, it's, I don't want to say putting on a show because that makes it sound not genuine, but like I'm acting in a way that I don't act in my normal life. Like I generally am just happy if there's a conversation happening around me. I'm happy just to sit there and soak it up. I don't need to be a part of it. So yeah, it's a departure for me for sure, but it's a departure I like. I like having, conversations and podcasting, but it's definitely not I'm not a talker naturally, is what I'm getting.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's like what you hear about actors, right? That you hear 90% of actors are super shy, introverted, sheltered even, and then they just have to put it on in the name of entertainment, like you're saying, Ben. It's funny.
No, I get that.
Cog, you say the same thing with you?
Opposite. I'm definitely a talker.
Really?
I run my mouth too much. Like my thing is like, it used to be bad because you guys got to be thinking like in like junior high and high school, and like, you know what it's like, you go to class and, you know, the teacher, like, let's say you have a bad marking period, and you know they're talking to your parent about, you know, how you did that report card or whatever, and it's like, yeah, he's great, but you know, he's always, if he could just stop talking with the games and get back to focusing, like talking was my thing. Like, so they know me. I just love the, you know, I remember one of the solutions was like I couldn't game for like a month or something. They tried to, like, my mom tried to take that away from me because I would come in with the cartridges and before the homeroom and I'm talking to, like, I was that kid. So yeah, I definitely love to talk. Definitely like to have fun with that. But I will say, to Ben's point, not our podcast, you know, consistently and stuff like that, I've gotten to this point where I literally have to be like an introvert after a while. Like, I don't want to talk to anyone after doing the 4, like, because then I'll get irritable and people don't want to see that side of me, because it can happen. So I have to learn to discipline myself to kind of shut down and say, okay, this is me time. You've talked to everybody. I don't want to hear from anybody right now, and let me just focus and do what I need to do. A single player game, or just quiet and just watch TV or something.
Yeah, that's smart. I reserve it for the podcast.
I used to be much more extroverted. Well, I mean, I guess I was probably, I don't know, man. I know that introvert really means, like, not necessarily that you act differently, but that you need more time to recharge. I know that's like the modern definition of it. But I definitely used to be someone who sought out, like, let's do something. Let's talk. Let's get together. Whatever.
Yeah.
And now it's like, yeah, if it happens, it happens. And yeah,
that's the usual trajectory as you get older, right? You don't often hear the opposite of somebody coming out of their skin as they get older. It's usually the opposite.
It's only in the movies where the librarian takes down her hair, where things change.
Takes the glasses off.
Yeah.
It's funny. I love picking other podcasters' brains about that, because it's Ben. First of all, I didn't realize you're going on 15 years. I knew you were doing other things prior to LSM, but I didn't know it was that long for you.
Phantom,
so that's really cool.
That's the Phantom.
My first podcast was about DJing, actually.
No way. Mm-hmm. Are those available somewhere?
I hope not.
We gotta find them. I gotta find these.
Really?
Yeah, man. I used to have a little DJ business, and we had a small network where we had we had other people, you know, doing stuff with us, where we had a DJing podcast, and then we had a gaming podcast. We had a sports podcast, which that sports podcast actually ended up going on to become, we signed a contract with a radio station who then, like, bought it out, essentially.
No way.
So that was years and years ago.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a story. It's funny to see people be like, we're up to our 200th episode. And I'm like, I don't know how many episodes I've done over my life, but
of everything.
Thousands easily. It's just been over multiple different iterations, and never very successful. Although, you know, I've definitely made some money, but never looking at, like, you know, 1 million download podcasts or anything. But it's just cool to be in the space for that long and know.
It's amazing.
Every year you see some new influencer being like, here's how you should work to get your podcast started. And I'm like, you have 300 downloads, my dude. You're not an expert.
You're not there yet.
Yeah.
Like, relax.
Pay your dues, make your bones. I mean, that's a 15, going on 15 years. That's like day one. I mean, that's
no, we were definitely not day one. Day one would have been like 2006. Yeah, around 2006.
Yeah, something like that.
But when we started our first gaming podcast, like, it didn't take a whole lot to be in the top 10, because there weren't that many, and the ones that were out there weren't that big. But
gotcha.
I think I probably somewhere have screenshots of my first gaming podcast being, like, number one on the charts above, like, IGN and everything else, just because we were so early to it. Not necessarily because we were bigger, but we were earlier. And that quickly changed, of course, but you know.
Yeah, now we're in this day where if you just assume somebody's going to have like, who's just started a podcast? I was like, oh, of course. Oh, Nate Bargatze, right?
Yeah.
He just started a podcast. I was like, yeah, of course. Like, who's
the comedian podcasts are huge right now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
They have a platform.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Take their fandom, make a little money, bring it over to YouTube. They're great talkers. They're great storytellers, right? Do what they do. It's I would put the money on the people. If I wanted to get the good bet, I would bet on people that aren't going to start a podcast, because most of them are going to start a podcast.
Yeah. Right.
The ones that don't.
Yeah.
That's shocking. In this day and age, God, look how far it's come in 15 years. It's, under 20 years. It's incredible. Yeah. It's incredible. And Cog, for you, it's interesting to hear your take on podcasting and just talking in your personality, because I mean, you're a great orator, right? But you know what's funny about what you say about being a talker? The lion's share of our interactions have been podcasting. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to you in person that often, but you're a quality content guy as far as what comes out of your mouth. So you're saying, because I feel like everything you say, means something. You're one of those guys who doesn't just spew off at the mouth. Just run off at the mouth. Everything you say has substance and everything like that. So that's a rare trait to have, the quality and the quantity. Because usually the people that I think of that run off at the mouth, you know what I mean? You think of people that are like, they enjoy talking, they enjoy engaging, they're more extroverted. But you know what I mean? Because they're always talking, you kind of, I don't know, you don't assume everything that's coming out of that mouth is 100% quality. But you have that. So that's very rare for me to have somebody that has both things, that you could go.
You need to talk to him a little more, man. You're way off base.
Ben knows the truth.
Is that what it is? I just haven't done enough with you.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, I appreciate that. I don't know. I think I'm just a late bloomer to it. So again, I think Addict. I mean, he was the one that was kind of like, hey man, like, I think you got chops to do this. And for me, I just, old man Cogbo was like, it's younger guys do that stuff. Who wants to hear my old self, talk about it? And I just started to fall in love with it. I was just like, yo, this is fun. Like, and once I start, I get passionate about it. And that's when the whole intro thing started and all type of, stuff with ILP. And then obviously I'll tell people a lot too is, even though I love podcasting is probably like not my number 2 form as far as, talking. I actually like interviewing developers. Like that's like my absolute favorite. Like I love learning the process. I like saying, okay, how did you get here? And then I know me and Ben, we talked about this, like when we used to go to conventions and stuff like that. To be like going to like a PAX or E3 back in the day, it's like you're getting to see the process, or like someone's like you're getting their album released before the release, kind of thing. So you're like, okay, and you're one of the first in the world to see it. I love that stuff because to me, those guys are the heroes. Those guys are the superstars. Like the stories of people who move their whole life from another, country or state. And, commit to a project and stuff like that. It's very interesting. And also, a lot of times we get it wrong, right? We're like, we think we know how that went, or why couldn't the developer do X, Y, Z? And then you find out the real from the, the actual source. You go, wow, that's crazy. So I think I'm proud of those moments where you learn something. I remember obviously recently you found out about the frames. But you find out things just about the process. And it's so cool to me. So I love that stuff.
I love that curiosity too. That seems like a key element, and it helps in doing what we do / what you do. And you also have, you definitely bring the enthusiasm, Cog, but you also have the great voice. Has anyone ever tapped you for voicing over cartoons? Have we talked about this before?
No, we never talked about it.
Because you have a great voice for that.
Yeah, I'd be interested. I never really pursued it, or I think you're probably like one of the few people have said it, but
that surprises me.
Yeah, I never really pursued it or like say, hey, okay, what's the avenues to go about it? But that would be fun. Definitely something I would entertain for sure.
I could see you doing that. I could see you voicing a character. I could see you narrating. I could see you doing ebooks.
Audiobooks are fun,
right?
Audiobooks are fun.
Have you done that, Ben?
Yeah.
You've done audiobooks before?
I've done a few. Yeah.
That's interesting too.
I don't know if they were any good, but I had fun doing it.
You have a good voice for podcasting too. No one's going, say what you want about me, but no one's going to tap me for my voice. You know what I mean? It's just like not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But some people just have that, whether it's the inflection or the tone or whatever. It's, that's really cool. See, that I would love to do that for guys like you because I'm involved in the animation space. And it's happened before where I'm like, oh, just get, the bad thing about that is it doesn't pay that great initially. Right. Yeah. Not until you have the agent and you get into SAG-AFTRA or whatever the specific union is for that. Starting out, it pays pennies on the dollar, but you might want to do it just because it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, both have that.
I'm not opposed. I'll get you the resume soon. Don't worry about it.
All right, it's on, baby. Cog, I think I'm going to stay with you to launch into our first topic. If that's cool with you. I think that works. I like yours a lot. Made me think of something immediately when you sent it. Very timely. And I'll let you launch right into it when you're ready, man.
So as we get older, holiday season, but reflecting a lot. And I started thinking about like why lately get very emotional. You know what I'm saying? Like certain things trigger emotions. So I wanted to talk about like tearjerkers and what I consider like grown man tears, things that, may kind of evoke that emotion for you, whether subconsciously or not. And, with myself, I started to think about, okay, what are these things that happen that I find myself like grown man tear come out? You're like, oh man, like this is hitting me. So first it's silly because a lot of people ask like how my sports fandom started. And a lot of it is actually based on the Mets. The Mets were like the first team I've ever rooted for, like ever, right? So I'm young. Mind you, I live in the Bronx in New York City, which is hilarious, right? But people forget in the 80s, the Mets ran the city. So
they really did.
Bro, so I remember 85 and the come up of, a Doc Gooden and, Darryl Strawberry, they're young and, that kind of stuff. And you say, okay, this is a little good team. And I learned baseball through just watching the games and Channel 9 and Kiner's Corner and all this stuff. And even I used to watch this stuff with my mom. Me and my mom got into baseball like around the same time. So the thing about the Mets was funny because they're like the bad news bears. They're this terrible team for the most part. And they're the little brother to the most storied franchise in the history of sport, which is the Yankees. So for me, it was always like the little engine that could. Like they're not good. They're gonna do something to break your heart. They're gonna embarrass you. They're gonna tear you apart. And on top of that, there's so much more Yankee fandom, so that when you go to school, you get teased. You get laughed at. You go, oh, damn Mets. It's like
especially in the Bronx, right? I mean, it had to be that way.
Bro, it was torture. So I remember, 86 vividly. And I remember like little kid, you're watching and you're rooting and you're hoping, right? And the famous game and, obviously in the World Series, game 6, the ball goes through Buckner's leg. And you hear I remember the famous call, and the Mets win it. And, what I'm saying? And it's like literally, it takes me back to that moment whenever I see a replay. I see the replay, I remember where I was doing, where I was, and then the tear comes out. And I'm like, okay, what is it about it? And it just comes down to, I guess for me, like the underdog story. Like it's not supposed to happen. So, this thing is always mad and you cherish it kind of thing. So I think that's what, so sports definitely, right? The second one for me is probably kind of like, I would say like movies, film, and movie and TV. So let's just say like one movie in particular I know that got me was this movie called The Boy with the Striped Pajamas. And I didn't know what I was getting into. I was just watching the movie one night. It was just kind of like what was going on during the Holocaust, I guess, but from two kids' perspective, one German and one obviously Jewish. And this story destroyed me. It's one of the most sad things I've ever seen. And you could see the innocence of children not understanding the scenario, what they're going through. And it was just rough. And I'm just like, man, this is a rough one. Another one for me, you're going to laugh at this one day. All right, so little Cog, my dad, used to get me Transformers. I was a high hardcore fan of this, Saturday morning cartoons and all that stuff. And every time you watch, Transformers or G.I. Joe at that time, like there's always a good moral story. Sure. Optimus Prime, this is what you do. And like he was our dad of the generation. Like you learned, a good lesson from Optimus every episode. He was a father figure to the Autobots. He did always, the right thing. So I remember they were like, yo, the movie's coming out. Transformers, the movie. I'm like, oh, this is great. So it's me and my cousin and my dad took us to it. And we watched this film. And in the first 5 minutes, they're brutally murdering Autobots. The smoke's coming out their mouth.
Graphically.
You see the animation leave their eyes. They turn cold. And I'm looking at my little cousin. I'm like, I'm not used to this. There's no get up and we're going to save the day. The show is going to continue. And I never forget the death of Optimus Prime. And my little Transformers kid self sat there in horror as my hero gave his final speech. Shout out to Stan Bush in the touch, though. That was amazing. You got the touch. We had our moment, though. We had it before the death. He had his send-off. But that death was so brutal. And then I'll never forget, because the human character, Spike, kind of reflected how the kids felt. Like, you can't die, Optimus. You can't. And the tears are streaming. And then Percepticus, the wounds appear fatal. And then he does the speech. And then the head turns. And he turns gray. Optimus Prime turned gray. And you realize he's not coming back.
Trauma.
Kids were crying and leaving the theater in horror.
I can't.
The famous story, the writers didn't even realize how bad it was because all they were trying to do was promote the new toy line.
Right.
So they're like, oh, it's just going to promote the new thing and they're going to love Rodimus. No, you killed our hero. How dare you? So Optimus Prime goes up there, and two more outfits before I pass it off.
That's amazing.
I was just thinking about what are the things that evoke this. A silly one was when I was into wrestling, big time, huge Ultimate Warrior fan. I believed in him. I thought it was real. The power of the war. He was my hero. And it was the first time it was face versus babyface. Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate War. We never seen anything like this. And it was WrestleMania 6. And I believe all my friends are Hulk Hogan fans. You know what I'm saying? All the leg drop, they point the finger. But I believe this crazy guy with the face paint and the rock music that rushes to the ring. He looked like a superhero. He got the tassels and everything. And I never forget, he beat Hulk Hogan. And I thought it was real. So I was like, Ultimate Warrior was up there. And then, like I say, the final one is, this is just in general, would be, this is just like random, like now as I get older. What kind of gets me now is, you ever see this thing called the Dodo? You ever heard of this thing? So basically what it is like this website, they curate like animal rescues.
Okay.
So it'll be like an abused dog or something that goes through a really rough time. They find it on the street and you see the process of the person taking them in, you know, taking care of the animal gaining trust. And then you see the health of the animal. Like they take it in segments and it's just so like, it's one of them wholesome. And you're like, oh.
That would get me.
Yeah.
That would get me.
So look, I gave a lot, but as I've gotten older, I reflect. I wanted to talk to you guys about this. So, let's start with Ben. I'm curious. I need some good cries. I need some good grown man tears from Ben. What are the tearjerkers for you, man?
It's funny because I don't, I know people may find this hard to believe. I don't exhibit a lot of emotions physically with my face, but I am I don't want to say I'm a soft person, but like I'm a feeler. Like I feel things, but I don't often like, I can be terribly sad, but that doesn't mean I'm going to cry. I can be very happy and I'm still going to look just like this. So it really, I don't know where that comes from or why that is. Like I've never been, I know people have in the past been like, you have to be intentional about smiling. And so I'm like, like I'm killing the Joker out here or something, or I'm killing Batman being the Joker. But, I just can't. I don't like to force things that don't naturally occur on my face unless I absolutely have to. So for me, I'm not much of a crier. Like I don't really cry a lot. Even if I'm terribly sad, I'm probably not, it's not going to exhibit in that way. But there are some times where, I get a little misty eyed, a little teary. I will say that as a kid, the movie The Fox and the Hound wrecked me every time I watched it.
That's a tough one.
And to this day, I haven't watched it in probably 5 years, but the last time I watched it with my kids, I had to walk out of the room. Bro, that movie, it wrecks me. And a lot of my stuff is with media. Like, you guys know the show The Office. It's just silly. It's goofy. There's nothing, super serious about it. It has some poignant things, of course.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, but it's just meant for fun. And as I've mentioned, I'm not really that terribly of an emotional person. I'm definitely not a sappy person. I don't think anybody would describe me, even my wife, as a romantic person. Like I don't get super worked up about anything. But when Jim and Pam's wedding happens, I get a little teary every time.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why.
That's a biggie.
I've seen that episode. I've seen the whole series probably like 8 times by this point and I watched it when it was originally airing. Every time though. still gets me a little worked up, a little emotional. The other thing that gets me, like, if I drop a plate or something now, whatever, like, it doesn't matter. But like, I think about a few instances when I'm sure my mom felt the same way. She didn't care about like that plate that fell off the counter or whatever and broke when I was a kid. But I remember feeling so badly about, you know, how that happened, that sometimes I'll think about something that happened literally 30 plus years ago. I'm like, oh man, I feel bad about that. This sucks. So yeah, as far as like actual tearjerkers, you know, I might get in the same mental state that someone who would be crying, you know, physically would have, but my body just doesn't react the same way, I guess, in certain instances. So tearjerker, I don't know that there's a whole lot, but I would say that most people who don't actually know me as a person, and maybe even many who do, would be surprised at how I'm feeling at different times when I don't seem to be displaying it or exhibiting it. Just because like most of that, I don't want to say like I internalize it, because, you know, then you get into some like psychology shit or something that I don't like. But it's not that I'm internalizing it. It's just that my body doesn't always correspond. It's kind of like, you know, when you get a little older and you're like, I feel like I can still run that marathon. I should use a different example because I've never run a marathon. I feel like I can still get out in the beer league softball game and beat everybody's ass.
There you go.
But you know, but your body can't always do it the same way it used to. I feel like I'm crying, but I'm not. Like there's nothing there happening. So that's kind of how my psyche, my mentality, my body works together. That I'll be in that state of mind, right, but not in that physical state necessarily.
Did you, when you were younger, did you feel you were more emotional then? And this is kind of the evolution, like you were saying, as far as like being older, and it would take something different, you know, something to make that emotion happen. Is it that situation, or just, hey, this was you for the majority, you know, of your life? Like this is kind of how you internalize and process.
Yeah. I was talking earlier about how I recorded 3 podcasts this week, and I don't remember what I said on most of them. So I definitely don't remember very much about my childhood. But I will say that I don't know that I was more emotional. I just probably had more opportunities to be emotional, you know, especially like as a teenager, girls get into situations.
Oh, sure.
Even early 20s, you know, like sometimes that stuff would be a little bit different. But like now I'm, you know, I get a little emotional with my kids, you know, whenever not because of anything they do or say or whatever, but just like I see them. You know, they're 9 and 11 now.
Yeah.
I did recently get a little choked up. My dog in earlier this summer turned a year old, and he's a Airedale Terrier. Their life expectancy is only 10 years. I was sitting there like, he's like 10% of the way through his life. You're like,
you start looking at stuff like that.
Yeah, like stuff like that gets me a little bit, you know. But I wouldn't say it forces tears necessarily. Gotcha. It's just maybe more emotional. But no, I don't think. I think as I've gotten older, this is a really weird way to say it, but I've just had less opportunities to be sad or emotional.
Okay. But
then along with that comes like, you know, in the last few years, I've had some longtime friends die, and that's not going to slow down, especially with family and everything else. So I'm sure that will, you know, just take a different form than it has in the past. The opportunities to be sad and things like that. So
no, it's a good one.
Yeah.
No, it's a good one. I'm similar. I'm similar to you at funerals.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it doesn't happen for me there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But, you know, maybe later on thinking about it or reflecting about it. So I get where you're going with that. So Dag, man, I thought about you in this. I was like, I think Dag's got a lot to share here. So I am curious, man. Tearjerkers, grown man tears, moments, things that maybe potentially evoke that from you.
Yeah, I'm always trying to figure this out about myself and sort of like self-analyze. I mean, I've always been like an emotional dude. I've always been like I'll self-label myself. I mean, I was a sensitive kid, you know what I mean? Very touchy-feely. You know, my feelings were easily hurt, cared about what people thought. And I had a very stoic dad. Our dad was very stoic growing up. He was the complete
that energy from him when
opposite.
I saw. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like he was really that dude who like always had that level of like manliness, if you will, on display. So I always admired that, but I you know, again, the apple fell really far from the tree. Maybe I had more of my grandpa was on my mom's side. My mom's dad was more the artist and he was more soft spoken, and he loved dancing, and he loved clothes. Like he had more of that sort of, he would cry at movies, and he was like one of the other role models. So I guess I took a page more out of his book. But I think if I look back to like my teens and my 20s though, there was always those go-tos. You know what I mean? There were those kryptonite moments. I generally wouldn't cry at movies, but like when I got old enough to realize what It's a Wonderful Life is about, and it was about, that would always bring it less crying, but more getting misty. You know what I mean? Or Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. Ooh. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was always a big one for me. You know what I mean? That would always get me a little choked up. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, you know what I mean? I wasn't going to cry at your average Hallmark movie and stuff. But then I think, again, in this self-analyzing sort of mindset, I think what happened was probably there was a shift in my early to mid 30s when we had our first kid. And it wasn't even her being born. I think what it was is when you witness and you look back and reflect on that first milestone, like her going from a newborn to a toddler, right? Now she's a toddler and you're looking back at pictures of or video of her being a newborn. That's what put the wheels in motion. Now the waterworks can't be turned off. You know what I mean? Like that's what set it off. There's just no going back. It looks like the floodgates are just open now and it's just going to keep going. Now it seems like you realize you're crying at a Super Bowl commercial, albeit not one of the funny ones, one of the ones designed to evoke emotion, but I would have never done that in my 20s, let's say. So I think it was this dad thing of now looking back, I got 2 teenagers. Ben started to say it, like as a parent, I think that it's it brings that out of you. It's nostalgia, I guess. I'm a nostalgic person anyway. You know what I mean? It's family. It's the people you love. But you know what happened? It was yesterday, right? And again, it's just like, what is wrong? You're having like one of these what's wrong with you moments, right? Mm-hmm. I hear about the Superman trailer. It's all over online, all over social media, Superman trailer. Now, I have to tell you, if I knew this was coming, I forgot. If I knew James Gunn was involved, who I like very much, I forgot. Like this was completely off my radar. Never gave a shit about Superman in my entire life. Yeah. It's not that I don't like Superman. It's just like I'm not a Superman guy, right? Gotcha. So I kind of begrudgingly tune into YouTube to watch this trailer. And I'm like, all right, let me see what all the fuss is about, right? Start watching. All right, looks interesting. Witnessing the new casting. Crypto's in it. I'm like, all right, this is weird. This is a weird choice. You got the dog in there, really? 30 seconds into that trailer, not only was I fully invested in something I really regularly don't give a shit about, I was getting misty. And I know a lot of it was the music, right? Mm-hmm. They reprised the Superman theme in their own way. And it was just a really good trailer. And, this might be the power of James Gunn. I mean, we've been saying this for a long time. Get this guy in the DC universe and let him go to work. Mm-hmm. And if this trailer is any indication, but again, it's a simple matter of like, this is not something I'm invested in normally, right? And I was getting choked up. You know what I mean? To the fact of like, I was trying to be defiant of the comments. Like, come on, how good can this be? And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, I get it. So it seems like there's just no stopping that sort of attitude now. I just you got to kind of steel yourself to that's just me now. I think I heard somebody say, it might have been Robert De Niro in an interview years ago. I'm not even sure what he was being interviewed about or what he was promoting, but he was saying something about reaching a certain age where it seems like your emotions are just kind of on display. Like you're much more vulnerable, and it happens to a lot of people and you just kind of got to go with it. You know what I mean? I still have that really kind of like ingrained, I guess you could call it old school mindset where I don't want to cry in front of my kids, whether it's something like a movie trailer or something more meaningful, like someone passing away. There's that even for somebody who's inherently not manly like me, I still have that thing, those caveman instincts, if you will, of like, you know what I mean? You got to be stoic for your children. They shouldn't see you cry. Like they're looking to you for comfort. They're looking to you for safety. So I still have that thing, but definitely, especially on my own, like if I come in my studio or my bedroom, close the door and, put on a movie, that I know is going to be an emotional roller coaster, I'm just going to go with it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I'm an emotional dude. I mean, I get happy, I get high, I get low, you know, I get sad, I get melancholy. It's just that's just I don't know if I'm mercurial, but like, I'm emotional. You know, I'm an emotional dude, you know? So I think that just discovering myself going from a teen or somebody even through most of my 20s wasn't, you know, maybe more normal to now where it's much more, it's, you know, I'm just much more open to it. And, you know, you can't fight it. You know, it's my nature, you know, and it might not be somebody else's nature, but I think that's funny though. That trajectory, it always seems like it goes in that direction, right? Where you go from a little more normalcy to something where you're a little more likely to get emotional. And I wonder if it ever, you know, Ben was even saying like maybe even went the other way for him. And sometimes I wish I could be like that. You know what though? It seems like even with that trailer, even thinking about this trailer, which I haven't really digested yet, it's been 24 hours since I saw it, right? I think a lot of it playing on your heartstrings is music. I just think for me, it's music.
It's huge for me. It's funny you say that. Yes, huge.
That's the big thing. It's like that could really take hold of something in you.
Yes.
And just bring something out. It's that music. And it dates back to like listen to Mozart. Like I don't know that much about classical music, but this has been the tried and true thing about music for years. Like there's just something, they say it soothes the savage beast, right? There's just something animal almost that just could just could take your emotions and kind of play it one way or the other. Absolutely. So I think a lot of it has to do with music. If I think of that Superman trailer or a commercial that got me choked up, right, over the years, or even a film, like take the music out of it, would it still have that same effect? I'm not sure. I don't think so. The acting can be great, the cinematography, the story, what's happening there, you know, the context, you're relating to it on a personal, in a personal way. But if you take out the music, I don't know, you know.
That's a great point. That's a great point because I was thinking about the moments that I mentioned, and all of them had some form of music that spurred that emotion, you know, kind of thing. So
Makes sense.
It's interesting you said that, and I like your point that you said in reference to, as I've gotten older, nostalgia is kind of the spark right now, and I'm just like, oh, okay, you know, I'm getting more reflective, or you know, and you appreciate it or whatever. But I love what you said about music, man, and I think for me too is it's definitely when I'm alone. It's definitely, I ain't sitting there bawling for that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm noticing that's the thing. Because I as you said before, like I don't know if it's our era where it's like, yo, you ain't supposed to cry in front of nobody. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. Like, so I'm from that, but it's like you said, if I'm sitting there and I'm watching TV or I'm just going through YouTube videos or whatever it is, right? And it's that combination. There'll be a reflective moment, nostalgia, and then that music. Now, I didn't watch the Superman trial. I was going to ask you, are they taking it back to the you said the theme? Is they doing the Christopher Reeve joint? Like what theme are they doing? Or what's Superman?
It's the original theatrical movie theme song that you would recognize. You know, like the whole thing with a spin. You know, you hear it. Mix. You hear it. Yeah. It's in there, which is so smart. You know what I mean? If you want to play with people's emotions and get people in that's the thing too. Like you're reminding me, like it's just music. Like sometimes I'll hear a song like Souls of Mischief 93 till Infinity, right? Oh, that's it. That's a warp right back to 93, 92, 93 for me, and what life felt like, and my friends, and the fun we had, and missing something. You know what I mean? Like missing those days. You're old enough now to reflect on, like, I wish I could go back for one day and just have all that again. You miss it.
Oh yeah.
Because your life is different now. Might be great, but it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
So it's just getting old enough to have that context of missing people, missing times, missing an era, missing what something felt like, missing doing something you can't do. And like Ben was saying, like softball, like feeling like, you know, I could still steal that base. You can't though. You're going to break your knee. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like this whole thing of like just missing and pining for something, I think, you know. That's a huge part of it for me. The Transformers, the movie thing is, how old are you right now, Cog, again?
I am now 48.
All right. So we're a couple years apart, which is perfect because, well, for you, I'm 51. So we're 3 years apart. I remember when Transformers, the movie, came out, it was the summer of me going from 6th to 7th grade, I want to say. So, which makes you the perfect age because I think my prime with Transformers was like 4th or 5th grade.
Gotcha.
So I remember that movie coming out. Now I was in 6th grade going into 7th. Like there was that, this was the 80s. You weren't playing with toys anymore, at least not publicly. You know what I mean? I had moved on. I had just moved on begrudgingly. So it was like, I wasn't really cool with it yet. One of my mom's best friend, Lorraine, lived right next door to us. Her son was probably your exact age. So right in that wheelhouse age-wise. Now, I couldn't go see Transformers, the movie, in the theater, although I would have probably wanted to, but it was over. Like, you know what I mean? Like I couldn't hang on any longer. It wasn't accepted. But I remember her coming over. My mom.
I don't know if that's a thing anymore, by the way.
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah.
I won't even say Gen X, like my generation specifically, like that pocket was like the last vestiges of that. Cause even when Colin came along, who's like an early millennial, it was over. Like you could still be into shit publicly in high school. Right. You know what I mean? Wear a Star Wars shirt, whatever.
Yeah.
Like nerddom, that Hot Topic era kicked in where it was okay in a mall sense.
My kid's favorite Pokemon YouTuber, I think, is in his late 40s. So
we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking about that with Brad recently, where it's just like, now it's completely acceptable. Back then, it was like there was a shutoff valve, and you had to adhere to it, or you were going to be a social outcast.
Yeah.
We were such cowards in retrospect, honestly. But so that came out. Lorraine came over to talk to my mom about. We just got back from Transformers the movie, and I'm listening. I'm not saying anything, but I'm looking like I don't want to look like I'm listening, like I'm tuned in, but I'm listening to everything she's saying. And she's saying all the characters died. And it was so crazy. And, little Brian's traumatized and everything. And I'm hearing it and I'm like, oh my God, like my eyes are probably widening as I'm listening to this, right? Because I care. I'm super invested, but I have to look like I'm not, right? So I always, and of course, going back now and seeing that movie and loving it. And that movie is still like, whether people realize or not, like that 2-hour sort of film is still the Bible for all the collectibles and the Transformer universe. Like it's all tied around that film, and going back in and seeing it, my heart always goes out to those kids like Cog who are a little younger than me and younger, who had to endure that while they were still like kids. You know what I mean? And what's so cool about it is, in a way, is that it's very 80s. You can never go back and do that with a franchise now. Yes. That was something that only existed in the 80s, where something could be so either bold or just kind of mishandled, right? That, and still get away with it, still get it on screen. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's over. Those days are totally over. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. It'll never get past the the board, the consensus. But I always love the fact that really did traumatize people. You know what I mean? That was an early one where I can't even imagine being just a little younger, let's say 4th grade, and sitting in the theater to endure that, where all of a sudden Prowl, now Brawn, Ratchet, Ironhide, they're all getting slaughtered. I mean, not just dying off screen, like they're exploding and their faces are popping off and shit like that. It's like graphic.
Yes.
The only thing they didn't do is make them bleed.
Bro, there's a scene that I believe RC the Robot, she's dragging corpses of some of the older G1 figures and she's making a face, and you're like, oh, this is death. This is what it means. Like, not to interrupt you, but it is funny now that I look back at it. It is kind of good that it happened because it taught the harsh lessons of life to us. Like, there's not going to be no happy end. When you're in war, this is an option, a result that can happen. And it really hardened us to let us know how life is. We became men.
And it went from the TV, like the Sunbow, G.I. Joe, Transformers universe of like dodging laser fire. You know what I mean? If a Jeep got hit, somebody would parachute out of it. Like it was like ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
To that. which was like graphic cartoon. As graphic cartoon violence as you've ever seen.
I think they've done Transformers deaths since then in the movies, but they've always like somehow brought them back to life, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Nobody.
That is true.
I think
nobody's gone for good.
Yeah.
Or transforms into an entirely new character because they sold their soul or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it was pretty devastating. And those Autobots fell at the hands of like specific Decepticons that we also loved. These was like Starscream and Megatron, the Constructicons. Like, they're the ones doing the murdering. So it was like, oh shit! Now all of a sudden these cool characters that you were rooting for, like Darth Vader, in a Darth Vader sense, were like ruthless murderers. They didn't even know how to feel about them. Like, do I like Starscream? I don't know.
So true. So true.
I love bringing that up because that was an early one for like just, I don't think I would have been able to control myself if I had seen that. And that's my only lament is I don't think I saw that on the big screen. I just couldn't. I had to wait for the VHS.
I remember exactly. A Whitestone Theater was where I was when it happened.
Brutal. My heart goes out.
My dad looked at me and he was just like, oh, this may have been a mistake. Taking him to this because I could not control it. I was just, I do remember people were gasping and some kids, I remember running out of the aisle.
Yeah.
Like it was, so the funniest parallel, shout out to my man from Bungie, CJ Gibson. He took his kids to, Infinity War.
Yeah.
So that's the closest parallel because he has a picture of his kids like, hey, right in front of the poster, we're going in to see Infinity War. And then he has a picture after that. He was like, welp, and their faces are distraught. And it was just like, that's the closest thing I've seen as a Transformers, the movie kid, that this generation had to experience because it was like, I can't feel myself. Oh, what is it, Mr. What was the line that Peter said to,
I don't feel so good.
I don't feel so good. Yes. And the heroes did not save the day.
No.
I don't think he said, I can't feel myself. I don't think that was in the script.
Whatever he said.
That was on they left that one on the cutting room.
That one on the cutting floor. But that to me, I was like, yes, a new generation.
That's a great call.
That pain.
They did have
I was definitely a little sarcastic with that one.
That's a great call up. No, that's a very similar thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where some of them were going to make it and some of them weren't. And then, you had to, I wonder, because, I was a full-fledged adult by the time that time, happened many years over. But yeah, that must have been pretty traumatizing for kids. Definite PTSD. And under Disney's reign, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Shout out to the MCU. I still think they do a really good job with that cinematic universe.
That was peak for them at that point.
Yeah, I think so too. For me, it was. I don't, it's what's all the stuff that came after that?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
You really can't.
It really doesn't.
There's a couple decent Spider-Man movies, and the newest Guardians was really good, but
I have to see that. I still have to see that.
WandaVision, I really like the show, but
hear good things about
that. Too much, I think.
Yes, saturated.
Oversaturation.
I'm a Marvel lover, and I'm even like, now it's just TV.
Yeah,
it's fine. I'm still watching it.
Yeah,
I'm still enjoying it because I'm a nerd, but I understand why it's not mass appeal for sure.
Right.
Yeah, no, I get it. In other words, that was it. They hit their prime, and there's not going to be a second age. You know what I mean? Like
there might be.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'd still like to see something done if they could integrate the X-Men properly.
Yeah.
And that's coming from a fan who doesn't even know much. Like, I'm a very casual X-Men fan, but wanting to see that done right with everybody,
absolutely,
like the comic books, that would be neat.
Well, Disney owns Fox now, so they can.
That's true.
They can do what they want.
They could. But if they could just let it rest a little while, I agree with you. Same thing we say about Star Wars all the time, right? It's just like let it go away. Let the heart grow fonder. You know what I mean? Like, just for a little bit. Yeah, man. That was a good way to kick it off. Getting a little misty here, Cog.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Did we do all right? Did we circle your topic?
I am satiated.
To your satisfaction? All right,
yes.
my friend. Well, you know what? I'm going to insert myself here in the middle because I like Ben's topic for last. And I was thinking about this one. And again, I said early on, I thought this topic this hasn't been on my list very long, but I thought about this topic and I was like, oh, this would be a really appropriate one for who I'm having on today, because this is a mild-mannered bunch. This is not the fiery, competitive bunch necessarily, that at least on its surface that I would think. Well, let me dig down and see what's kind of like what's brewing beneath the surface of these two gentlemen. I thought of the topic as I emailed you guys: competitiveness, right? Are you a competitive person? Or what are those things that draw out that quality in you, that fiery, competitive quality in you? Is there something that makes you feel competitive? Competitiveness is a weird word, but that is the word. And it's one of those things that make you feel that way, even if you're not. Maybe maybe it's sports, playing sports, especially when we were younger, rooting for our favorite sports teams, professional, college, whatever it is. I talked about in that email to you guys, we all grew up with that kid who just was something I never understood, just being competitive at anything and everything. That one kid who was losing at Candyland and knew wasn't going to win, just flipped the board over, just ruined the game for everybody. Like the one kid, that one dude who or girl who just had to win at everything, just competitive. Maybe it was pressure from the parents. I don't know. That was always the weird person for me that I never really understood. Not being selectively competitive, but just competitive at everything. Right. And maybe one of us was that person. I don't know. But I was thinking about this the other day because I was thinking back early this year. I spent, 3, 4, 5 months at NBC in Philly. NBC, Comcast. It's basically NBC News 10, who is Philly's NBC News affiliate, fourth biggest media market in the country. Very busy, working in the Comcast tower downtown in Philly. Very busy newsroom, and we were responsible for creating. It was broadcast. I work in television animation, which is not broadcast. Broadcast is on the fly. You need the content immediately, 24 hours a day. It's not working on a series that's you have 12 months and then the first episode is going to go live. Broadcast is a different world, and I very few times dabbled in it. It's very frenetic. It's very exciting. It's very stressful. And they were an awesome team. And I basically worked on, it was very strange the way they had it set up there, but I basically worked on the marketing team there doing graphics. And my team's responsibility was to sell ads and sponsorship on content for Philly related stuff, whether that was the Eagles or a Jason Kelsey fan event down at the Jersey Shore, or a Phillies game, or a Phillies based marathon, all the Phillies Paris Olympics promotion, like whatever we got involved with. Our job was to sell ads for Wawa and Toyota and Freedom Mortgage and wherever else. So they're bringing the money, bringing the revenue for Comcast, for Philly, for the events. And me and my small graphics team had to do all the graphics for that, and all the everyday things like weather and, flying logos for news shows and, this just in and all that kind of thing. And it was fun. But I did work on a marketing team where their job was to brainstorm ideas to get funders and sponsors on board for stuff. And I really wasn't thinking, I'm thinking graphics, animation, After Effects, all the things I normally do. And the first meeting I had there, it was for an Olympics thing. And it was like a very small team, like maybe on a good day, 11 of us would be in the office, right? Very small team. And I thought it was just kind of a roundup about, status check. Where is everybody with your current projects? But it wasn't. It was a brainstorming meeting. And I worked with, my two bosses were very good marketing people, like excellent conceptualizers, brainstormers, ideating shit. And I didn't know and I'm very competitive with that kind of stuff. And which let me go back and set the table for this. When I was at Sesame Workshop, I spent about 10 years at Sesame Street working. My team was the in-house animation team. We did all the animation for Sesame Street for the domestic show. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of addressed the company in a creative services capacity. So we did animation for any department that would call on us: publishing, licensing, digital media, creative services proper, Whoever needed us, we would do a little animation for them. Plus we worked on segments for Sesame Street. So we were always really busy. And somewhere along the line, my creative director and art director realized, like, Dagan, you're a really good marketing person. You always have good ideas for stuff. I always thrived on just kind of ideating and thinking of cool ideas beyond just animating and drawing. Like, kind of feel like I missed my calling, because I think I'm better at that than I am at drawing, actually. And they realized that, and we're like, we're going to kick you up to the marketing department. And brainstorm with them, and if they like it, they'll call on you, and you brainstorm for whatever they're cooking up there, a product line, a new show, some merch, whatever it is, right? So I was like, all right, awesome. Went into my first meeting with the marketing department, who I didn't know, and loved it, like really loved it. I was, we were all just throwing out ideas. The whole thing was like, no idea is a bad idea. Just throw it out. Very encouraging environment. They were very welcoming to me. And I guess they liked me from our first brainstorming session. And I would get called upon every so often to sit with those guys and just think, oh, we're cooking this up. We're thinking about doing a spin-off YouTube channel. What should we call it? Who should we use? It was this kind of free form, just throwing ideas and seeing what stuck to the wall. I loved it. And I was very competitive with it, because I learned a long time ago not to be that competitive with art and drawing, because there's just so many people that are so good at that. Mm-hmm. And I think my skill set comes in other, I'm better at the other, I'm good enough to draw professionally, but really when it comes to ideas and cooking up fun things and, thinking outside the box, I'm really good at that. So I loved it. And anything that I'm good at, I get very competitive with. Right. And that's the one thing. And so hence cut to years later, last year, probably March or April, sitting in this newsroom with my NBC team. And I remember like just realizing like, oh, this is a brainstorm meeting, and feeling unprepared, and then trying to catch up, and then just feeling like, oh shit, like I need to think of a better idea than this guy, like getting very like worked up, very competitive. Like that's what really like ignited my heart to feel competitive, where I don't really feel that way about a lot of things. But that whole thing of like, I want to make sure I'm thinking of the best idea in the room. I fall short a lot. Sometimes another person thinks of the best idea in the room, but I love like being that guy. Like I hate having someone having an idea where like, oh, I wish I thought of that. I hate it. I hate that feeling so much. Whether it's naming something or coming up with an idea of a cartoon series or whatever it is, I just can't. I'm just very competitive about it. And I think, having to abandon, like, all right, realizing, same thing with skateboarding. Growing up, loved to play sports in the street, on leagues, little league, whatever, football, baseball, hockey, basketball, soccer, but I was never good. I was mediocre at everything. So it got to the point where you're getting 8, 9, 10. It's like, when am I going to find something I'm really good at that I can sell at? And skateboarding came along, and I don't think I was that talented at skateboarding. I think skateboarding for me, I was 13. I think it was more of a matter of finding something that I wanted that I loved enough to dedicate the time to.
Right.
And that was always my thing. And then, I think that, and people sort of skateboarding was the great leveler, because growing up in New York in the late 80s, no one had any experience on a skateboard, besides it was sometimes in people's toy box and they used it like a pair of roller skates or a Frisbee. But there was a level playing field with skateboarding. Everybody was starting at the same time. And then people just didn't like it, or people were afraid of getting hurt. So I was able to kind of, if I stick to this, I could be considered, the best skate rat in my high school type of thing. And it was really less talent and more of like dedication for me. But that was the first time. But then by the time I'm in my late teens and I'm going into New York to the Brooklyn Banks, and then I moved to Philly when I'm 20, and then realizing, oh, good skateboarders are a dime a dozen. You're going to have to give up this dream. You know what I mean? You're mediocre when it comes to like the big, maybe in the suburbs, you know what I mean? You're a little, but once you get to like where everybody's doing it, like you're just middle ground, dude. Like, so it was always clinging to those things where it was like, all right, I'm not the best artist, but I probably could think of a better idea, but that's because I'm spending all this time and it means something to me. So I'm going to hold on to that. Generally not a competitive person, but that's what brings out the tiger. You know what I mean? It was marketing and it's animating. I don't like when somebody could draw better than me. That's fine. You got the God-given draftsmanship. I don't like when somebody animates better than me. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. And it happens. It happens. You know what I mean? You're not always the best dude on the team or woman. There's been plenty. God, shout out to my friend Jessica. She's an amazingly talented animator. I'll never be as good as her. But you know, it's like that, but it means something to me. So I'll spend more time to make sure my scene looks better. I'll animate 20 hours a day, knowing you're going to put in an 8-hour day. Mine's going to be better, not because I'm better, but because I'm going to put the work in. Right. So those are the two things. It's like that weird marketing gene that I have and the animation thing. And then realizing you have to give up the other things. I'm not going to be the best artist. My wife's 10 times the artist I am. You know what I mean? She just has that God-given talent. You know what I mean? And I'm wondering, so I have this animation thing, this competitiveness. What about you guys? What is that one thing or two things or several things? Maybe you're a very competitive person, but maybe you're an all-around competitor. Cog, I'll go to you first on this. When it comes to competition, what brings out that fearsome competitor?
Yeah, it's a good question. I had to really think about this because my disposition is naturally not competitive.
Yeah.
Right. So generally I'm like, yo, I'm here. Like, let's have some fun. You know, just in general, like I struggle with like embarrassing people and showing them up. It's not my first thing to do. So like, you know, it just doesn't come to me naturally. But what happens with me is when I'm challenged or I'm disrespected, my focus is razor. And something comes out of me instinctually, like, oh no, you're not going to do that to me, kind of thing. So like, you'll laugh, Dave. Like for me, I always looked up to, you ever watch those old karate flicks and, you know, there's like a frail old man, but he's like the master. He's like the kung fu master. You know what I'm saying? Like I used to look up to those guys. I'm like, he could technically beat everybody in the room, but he chooses to use his powers for good. Right? He doesn't necessarily only when he's really challenged. He's like the nicest guy. When you have the rogue student who's using his powers for evil and just bullying people and
Flashy.
stuff. I love films like that because like to me, I always like pattern myself. I'm like, that's the guy with the strength, the guy that didn't have to show it to you every single time, but when he's pushed, oh, you're gonna get that work.
Yeah, that's Yoda. That's Yoda, right? That's Yoda.
There you go.
100%.
Perfect example, right?
Yeah.
I've always gravitated towards characters and heroes like that. So I think the thing that started my competitiveness, obviously during my jock days, I was a good basketball player. I was a good basketball. I was very athletic. And what the kids call, I had hops at a young age. So I remember basketball was the first love. And all my friends we used to play. And my friend Austin, who's extremely competitive, he became a very good basketball player. But I remember, I never forget the day, like we were just shooting hoops around and this time I forgot what age I was, maybe in my teens. And I remember we just messing around and I jumped up and I grabbed the rim. And he just stopped and looked at me with disgust. He was like, I can't believe you could touch the rim. And he was like, I'm going home. Like, I'm practicing every day. Like he would do things. He would wear leg weights. He would do all these things because he was so like, I would say jealous, but competitively jealous. Like, yo, I could do this already, right? And we would have these back and forths. And then, like, he would do stuff. And I'm like, man, I wish I had a jump shot like his. He could hit the three real good and stuff like that. And then we get into this thing where we play each other and it's like, who's going to be the best for the day? Or for us, we play 21, which I don't know if 21 is kind of like,
sure.
Everybody could get together and, you know, whoever the first to 21, you hit the foul shot and you win the game kind of thing. And it became a thing. And I knew it was on because he's probably the only friend I've ever fought physically.
Oh, no.
Because we would get into it and he would kind of try to throw things in my face and like, yeah, I beat you this time. And I was getting tired of it. I was like, all right. So then when I would beat him back, I'd let him know he didn't like it because I don't normally naturally exude like I have to embarrass you. But once you do it to me, now I got to do it to you. So yeah, one time we got into it. We felt so bad. Our parents got involved.
Damn. How old are you guys at that point?
Oh, definitely teens at that age.
Yeah.
And yeah, he came back. He apologized to me. He's like, "Hey man, I'm sorry. Like, bro, I was like, bro, we should never get to that level. We physically throwing hands at
That's
each other."
tough.
Yeah, we didn't talk. I remember it was bad because the families got involved. You know what I'm saying? We both got marked up, and like they were like, "Yo, what happened?" And I was like, "Austin." You know what I'm saying? And they must have been like, "Yeah, Cog, whatever." So yeah, it was bad. But then we eventually came back together. Our friendship is stronger than that. But we remember these moments. You know what I'm saying? Kind of thing. The second thing would be, and again, you know this story a lot, Dave, with Tekken and video games.
I was thinking about this with you.
Yeah, fighting games. For sure. I gotta shout out King, man. King made me a man earlier because what it is with him is he's so naturally funny. So you're playing in a group and then he's beating you and talking so much trash and getting everyone to laugh at you. So I'm like, oh, I cannot lose to him. No, like it just instinctually something. I'm going to practice every day. I am never going to allow this man to do these things to me. So that made me tougher, and being able to concentrate while someone is talking smack is an art. You gotta be mentally tough.
Yes,
because you could be distracted and get into, and then that's what he wants, and then you're not in playing into your best game. He wants you off your game because he knows you cannot compete with him with this. So that's how it. He definitely
psychological.
Oh man,
tactics.
He made me a stronger person competitively on every level, being able to endure and be able to deal with that and be able to have razor focus. I always told the story to PJ as far as Solve's younger brother, Kaibatsu.
Right.
That taught me a lesson in humility. Like, hey, I was the best for a long time, but then I trained this guy, and then the student surpassed the master. And I had to humbly go, oh man, I cannot believe I lost. We used to do those Iron Man sets that I tell you the best of 10, and you cannot leave the room until someone had a 10 fight advantage.
That's
over
hard.
The next person. We would stay there for hours playing Tekken 3 until someone it's about mentally breaking someone who can adapt to what the other person is doing and then assert their dominance. And I used to beat everybody.
How you guys do it?
Oh, bro, we had a championship belt. The person goes home with the belt, but it was a thing. Like we made it. So yeah, that. And then I want to shout out Solve. He was so good in baseball games, bro. He just had this quiet. You could not beat
baseball video games.
Yes.
Oh shit!
He would terrorize us in these baseball because Solve played baseball. He was a very good athlete playing baseball. Mm-hmm. And then when it came to baseball, he just understood. So it's like I remember like I would savor when I ever beat him. I'm like, yes, I don't care if I never would again. At least I got him in that. And then the last one I would say, two quick ones. My dad, he taught me how to play chess.
Oh man.
Never could beat this man. Oh my God. I remember the first day I beat him. He kind of got disgusted and I loved it. I'm like, yeah, he was so mad. He didn't throw a chessboard or anything, but he was just like, oh. So I was like, oh, that's checkmate, right? Because I've been dominated my whole life by this man. Like he's always been the wiser person, the smarter person.
Sure.
So yeah, you got that. And then the last part of my competitive, this is super young. During my junior high school days, again, the athlete days, I was before beefy car. I was very quick. I was the quickest kid. I was always the fastest kid. You know what I'm saying? That's why I used to do basketball. I used to do running back. And I'll never forget, like anybody, we do a race. I'm always the guy that was winning. But I remember when I got to junior high school and my good friend at the time, his name was Jaime Vicente. Shout out to Jaime. He's probably listening to this podcast. I haven't talked to Jaime in a while. He's my junior high school friend. We got really tight, really close. And he came to that junior high school from another elementary, not the same one. So everyone knew him as the fast kid. So we were the two fast kids. So we got a race one time. And see, bro, that boy smoked me.
Really?
He smoked me. And he did something that was so funny after he beat me. So everybody, like, we did the race privately, not in front of everybody, right? Okay. All right. So we come back to the kids in the yard. So everybody's like, yo, who am I? I'm like, yeah, he won. And then they were like, yo, you lost? Like, I'm like, yeah. And then Jaime goes, wait a minute. He's the fastest person you know? He's like, yes. Bro went to strike with that kid. He's like, oh, you're the fastest. Everyone knows I'm the guy now.
That's a great ending.
It was amazing. And shout out to Jaime Vicente. And with racing, one final story with racing, which is funny. I was very competitive with sprinting and stuff, like the short sprints.
Sure, yeah.
I learned also a very humbling lesson. Never judge a book by its cover. I'd never forget this story. It's another friend of mine, his name was Tim. He used to take us we used to go to these summer camps, and his father would drive us to these camps, right? And his father, no disrespect, older gentleman, little heavy set, right? And I would win all these. I still have a couple of these trophies. Hold on.
I love it. All
right. So these upward fun. I'm proud of these, right? I was the best camper, the best athlete. You know what I'm saying? You win this at these summer camps and these physical things, you're the man, right? So I was the top kid. So I'm coming back. He's driving me back from camp. Me and his son, he's driving me back. And I'm feeling myself. I got my medals. I got my trophy. I'm the fastest kid. I'm the best athlete. And I was like, I forgot what I must have said something that pissed this man off. So after he dropped us off, and he was, oh, so you're the fastest. He's like, yeah, maybe we should race sometime. And I'm like, oh man, I am going to smoke you. Like, what are you talking? Like, you race me? I'm looking at Tim, my friend. I'm like, is your dad saying right now? Does he not know who I am? To this day, I still don't know how this happened. His dad beat me in a race.
No way.
What? To this day, I'll never judge a book by its cover again. This man, his speed at a short distance, and he beat me, and he let me know about it. Mm-hmm. He was like, don't you ever. And I was like, oh man. That's so tight. Again, life lessons with being competitive and stuff like that. But yeah, those are the funny ones that I can remember off top. And I will say, like I said, naturally, I don't say that's my first thing. I'm a competitive person, but when I am pushed, I think it really comes out, and people can get it out of me. And then I kind of lock in
That's a good policy because you're kind of reserved until you're pushed.
Yes, that's my thing. I am not a naturally competitive because I'm like, I just want to have fun. I don't want to make it about that. But when someone tries to make it about that with me, something inside bubbles.
That seems fair. And then they asked for it.
Right? Yes. And then I'm like,
losing that race, man, it all comes back to that old master thing. Yes. You know what I mean? You don't want to judge a book by its cover, right?
Yeah.
I don't like the way we finally saw Yoda fight in that movie, but right, he should have been so strong that he barely had to lift a finger. He shouldn't have to be flipping around like a lunatic and shit like that. But we won't get on Star Wars stuff. But you know what? I don't know if Ben knows this. When my best friend PJ, who was like the fighting game genius of our group growing up, I was pretty good at fighting games, specifically the Capcom and SNK stuff. PJ was good at everything. I certainly wasn't good at the 3D stuff like Tekken, but PJ was. When PJ started playing Tekken 4, right, with Cog's crew, PJ came back to me and was like, yo, dude, it's a Cog's crew is tight on Tekken, like pretty intimidating. And that meant a lot because PJ never said that about anybody, growing up.
Yeah, he's good too. He's really good.
Yeah, he's good. So it was good. That was cool. It was like two worlds colliding. I kind of loved it.
I loved it. Yeah.
It was so sick. But now, Ben.
Yes.
You're a very reserved guy, very chill. But I want to get under the hood, right? Let me see what's ticking under there. What are you packing? Not like that. Not like that. Get our head out of the gutter.
What you packing, man?
The engine. What the engine?
Just trying to boost the Constellation numbers.
Yeah, we definitely going
there. So I would say I don't consider myself an overall competitive person, but I am competitive in interesting ways. Now, as a younger man, I was definitely more competitive, mostly with like, I don't even want to say like school related stuff, but like competing with my friends about things, not like organized sports or not like, whatever, but I was very competitive in just a lot of ways, like just trying to be better than them in some way, and not necessarily a prideful way, just in I don't know, this may sound a little conceited, but like I've always just been pretty good at whatever I try to do. So it was always and unfortunately for me, most of the time that was without really trying that much. I just kind of luck into things sometimes. So, but for me, whenever I saw somebody else, I was like, oh, I could do that better. And I would try to. The one thing that would drive people crazy, or one specific individual I remember in high school, she was just like always studying, always trying to be the best, always wanting to have the best grades. And to my, not to my credit at all, I didn't really try in school very much, but I was always top of the class. Like, I was,
wow,
maybe not like
Jesus.
valedictorian or anything.
Yeah.
But I could literally just sit and listen to lectures and go and ace the test. I never had to think about it, never had to study it afterwards. Like, that's just how I learned, was by listening and absorbing things. And, except for math. Math, I actually had to try at my whole life, and even still to some extent.
I hear that.
But just, I read so much as a kid that I didn't have to think about spelling or grammar or writing or anything like that. It just came to me naturally. And, science, as long as it didn't involve math, it wasn't chemistry. I was I was right there. I was right on top of it without really trying. And so I remember, though, I would just goad this other, even to the extent that I didn't study, because I knew this girl was obsessed with being better than me.
Oh, man.
I would just tell her oh yeah, I didn't study at all. Even if I may have read for an hour or something like that, just to prod her a little bit. So maybe that was more trolly than competitive, but that was me playing off of someone else's competitiveness, specifically with academics. Now in college, I had to try a little more with a lot of stuff, and certainly, my lack of studying skills has not assisted me in my adulthood with attention span. But I digress. As far as so probably starting in the early 2000s, as I got into junior high, up through right about the time I got married, so 2012-ish, I was incredibly invested in professional sports. Incredibly invested, to the extent that I remember in college, I would have night classes and I would have to miss Penguin games. Because they're all the time. Hockey games are almost every night during the season,
right?
And I love all hockey, but specifically, I would root for the Penguins. And this is when they were really good, when Crosby and Malkin were working off of each other. Fleury was blocking everything that came at him. And man, I was so invested. If I was missing a game because of class, and that for some reason I couldn't pull out my iPod Touch and get the game on the school Wi-Fi or whatever, I would feel physically ill. And I was so competitive on behalf of those athletes making tens of millions of dollars a year that just it controlled my life to a large extent. And I would, the Steelers were the same way with me. Pittsburgh sports. I've never really been a giant baseball fan, although because it was a sport that my city was invested in, I was invested in it too. So I'd follow everything. I, of course, played my own, fantasy games and everything, and was very competitive in those, and talk a lot of smack. And we'd have real life trophies that we'd all take home. And but I was so invested that it got to be an issue for me, a physical issue, where I was getting to the point where I was just not able to cope very well sometimes if we'd lose, and if I'd have to miss a game, it would affect me physically. So I had to go totally cold turkey and say, for a whole year, I'm not watching any sports at all. And it almost killed me. But at the end of that, now I can just be like, hey, you know what? Hey, I think there might be a Penguins game on tonight. I'm going to watch it, and I can enjoy it. And I still get a little worked up sometimes, don't get me wrong. But I'm definitely a lot better than I was.
A lot more casual.
I was so competitive. I'm a lot more casual of a sports consumer than I used to be. One thing that really I found that I can enjoy watching and participating in the discussion of sports way more healthily. Healthily, is that a word?
Let's make it a word. Healthfully.
Healthfully. I don't know what the right word is. With a lot of healthness. If I don't listen or anything to professionals, commentators and everything, I get way too invested in what they're saying and translate that to myself. So if I just consume it like a normal individual and not a total freak who has to follow everything that ever happens in watch all the wires and everything.
Mm.
It definitely is. So that was competitiveness on behalf of someone else. That wasn't really my own doings, but I would say that I get oddly competitive. Like, I don't really care most of the time about stuff, but if someone else is competitive, kind of like you guys were saying, I'm going to be competitive back. I mean, I think about like board games. Like, I don't care, man. Let's just play this game for the 9,000th time.
Sure.
I'm more of a strategy player, so a little bit that affects your psyche, where you're like, oh man, they're beating me in this really abstract German game they've never heard of, and I've invested my life in it. But if they're beating me, that hurts. If it's something else random, whatever. If I'm playing with the kids, I don't care. But if they're competitive about it, then I'm going to be competitive about it.
Oh,
and
yes.
But I'll just get like on weird kicks where it's like I'll go into something not caring at all about it, but then someone else is like hyped up. I'm going to match that. I'm going to match that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Bringing that kind of matching the energy. I like that.
Yeah, to some extent. And I think that makes it more fun for them too.
Yeah.
Because it's not fun to be competitive against somebody else that doesn't care.
That's a good point.
Good point.
Which is part of the reason I was talking about that girl in high school that, like, I'm going to be honest, I was doing it to troll her, but like part of me thinks like, did she do better because I pushed her to?
You were driving her,
even though I was just trolling her the whole time, like just constantly antagonizing her about what grade I got on something.
That
and
makes sense.
Telling her I didn't study at all, which was true, but she didn't have to know that. So that's a thing. And then, I'd say that's the most of my competitiveness. Cog, I will, I have not probably, other than when like running around the yard with the kids, broken out of a small jog in years now. But I'm that guy that anytime, like when we be playing, softball leagues and church softball, or anytime I've had to like run somewhere or whatever, people are like, I didn't know you could move like that. Like I'm the guy who can now, not for very long. I don't have the stamina.
That short distance. Yep.
That short distance, I'm going to smoke you most likely.
Yes.
Like I said, not anymore. I don't know. I haven't actually, tried to move that fast in a while, but I was always that guy people were like, I knew you were strong, but I didn't know you were fast.
I love that.
No, I can be fast, but not for very long. Not for very long.
You can put it on if you need to. Short bursts, right?
I learned that lesson. Short bursts. It is possible.
There's a lot of muscle packed in this fat of my legs. All right. Sure, that one I need to.
Don't judge a book. Ben, you know what's something? First of all, with the sports, being invested in sports, you kind of changed your behavior, which is a really hard thing to do.
Yeah, I had to.
And you were that invested. This is prior to, at least you weren't gambling. This is before FanDuel. It wasn't about even a fantasy league. You were just that invested out of Pittsburgh pro sports fandom.
Love it.
Yeah.
Which is really kind of very authentic. I mean, I don't think it's rare, but you don't hear that a lot nowadays. Everybody seems to have, there's a method to everybody's madness.
Sure.
It's not just in love for love of your city or, said team.
Right.
So that's interesting. You guys bring up the thing of too, which I got to say, I'm a little envious of rivals. Ben with the girl in school and Cog with his friend Austin. I think that's the thing.
I just want to clarify. I was her rival. I didn't care about her. She cared about me.
She cared about you.
But I think, judging from that story, though, she was bringing her A game because she had that. You were the catalyst for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She had, I think competitiveness is kind of a weird psychosis in a way. Because I think, I look back at the things I was competitive about. I would either, with skateboarding, getting to a certain age, and I would just concede. I'd be like, all right, everybody, half these people are better than me. I have to find a new thing to be great at. Same thing with drawing. It's like, okay, I'm an average drawer. I could do it and make a paycheck, but I'm not going to be better than, there's always going to be someone better on my team. You know what I mean? So I have to concede. Or just maybe being competitive in a vacuum where it's like, I'm the only competitive one. There's no real rivalry here. I don't have a rival. If I have an animation rival, it's somebody who I acknowledge as being good. It's not a thing that we're outwardly discussing. And she's like, I'm looking at that one person on my team to make sure on Friday when we deliver our scenes that my scenes are better, knowing full well I'm spending probably twice the time. Like full on, depending. I'm thinking of specific people in my mind's eye right now, knowing like the only reason my stuff is sharper or smoother or more fluid is because I spent hours more than they did. and they don't even know we're competing. You know what I mean? It's just for my own personal satisfaction of making sure my stuff is the best stuff for the director on a Monday morning. You know what I mean? That type of thing. I don't think I've ever really had. Same thing with marketing. Like I remember one, I don't even remember his name at Sesame Workshop, but he was a great marketing guy. Always had great ideas. Always, never failed to come through with like really good ideas. And he was like, that would be my nemesis, my rival going in. He didn't know that. Maybe he did, but I doubt it. You know what I mean? I was competing against him, but it's like, I don't think I've ever had that outward rivalry where, you know, it's like that Harry Draco Malfoy thing where it's like, you know, I mean, I never really had that. Mm-hmm. And maybe rivals is another separate topic.
Yeah, rivals is another one.
It really kind of fascinates me because it's a world I don't know. You know,
yeah. No, it's inspiring. I mean, for me, it's just that push. You know, it makes you better. It does make you better. I mean, especially I always inspired by like people who are better than me because I'm just like, okay,
yes,
I gotta match that energy because this person's coming. So you gotta be like, okay, A game. Ready to go, whether it be, you know, presenting or even in the workspace, kind of what you were saying, Dave. You know, there's people I'm like, man, that person's really talented. I cannot come out there and have a half-baked presentation or performance.
There you go.
I'm gonna look stupid coming after that person. You know what I'm saying, kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. And then I would say I gotta give your brother some props. You know, obviously podcasting with Carl, like he's great at what he does, right? So it's just like, you better know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like you better not come in there not prepared, you know, kind of thing. So I think that's also a competitive thing that drives me like, all right, we're going to talk about this subject because I know he's going to come with A game kind of
yes,
thing.
He'll make you bring his A. He's bringing his A game. I mean, he's better than me on his worst day, you know, and I know it. And I don't, you know, it's the thing is, I don't know if he know when you have that level of talent at something, right? I don't even know if you know, because what other world do you know? The perspective is that you're just naturally
you have a gift,
gifted at something, you know, it is talent. But yeah, he's certainly that one where it's like, I think about this a lot, like when you, and especially like admiring somebody's talent at a given thing, you know what I mean? It's like, it could be very frustrating because you're trying to harness that, but how do you define talent? Like they just have something that you're not, you know, this person could have something that you're just not naturally capable of having. You know, so what can you, I'm always looking at that, the things that are meaningful to me. Like, how can I take a little bit of that and put it into my stuff, or they do this way, or, you know, try to like season it with something, but knowing full well, like that's just coming naturally to them. They're not identifying it. They're not analyzing it. They're just, you know, it's something that kind of, you know, it just comes naturally that you're something you're trying to harness. And that's where the thing is of a rivalry is kind of fascinating to me. You know what I mean? Two people that you can't have the same level of talent. You know what I mean? So how do you make up for talent with ambition or, you know, enthusiasm, that type of thing? You know, just plain giving a shit. And the schoolyard basketball thing is interesting to me, Cog, because fighting video games like in an Evo capacity, right? That's kind of the same mentality, the shit talking, the psychological intimidation.
Oh yeah.
It's a very similar, it's very public. You know, you're playing in front of your boys, crews of other people, like that. It's like that fighting game thing is like almost like the next evolution of like where schoolyard basketball came from. You know what I mean? It's like very similar. The basketball is one thing I realized very early on, very fun game. But even as a kid, I was just like, this is not, I think with basketball, my son plays, and he's a pretty good player. He needs to practice more. But I think in watching him now and being able to really analyze basketball specifically, I just don't think my mind could move that fast. Like you have to be, it requires a lot of agility and, you know, obviously all the physical prowess, but there's something about that game moving so fast that it's much, baseball is, which is the sport I was probably best at, much more deliberate. You have time to think, whether you're at the plate or in the field. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's a much slower moving game. Basketball just moves too fucking quick.
It does.
Same with soccer.
Yeah.
It's like you got to be there's got to be some, you know, mental agility as well. And
it does. That's a good point. I know for me, you know, being an athlete, one of the things I pride myself was I was a great two-way player. So offensively and defensively. So the sense that I would take pride in defending the best player. And, you know, a lot of people that, you know, they want to be flashy and stuff like that. But I really took to the challenge of like, okay, that's the guy, you know, I got him. I'll check him, you know, kind of thing, and doing a good job. I was just slowing him down. And I feel like I'm helping the team kind of thing. So, yeah, it's interesting, you know what I'm saying? The whole with basketball, it's a lot of processing on the fly. It's a lot of mental intimidation, you know what I'm saying? People try to flex on you, whatever. And you just got to keep at it. You got to keep at it. But yeah, those are all that stuff is, I think, which going to your overall point of like, you know, competitiveness. And I think what's missing though, like with the online stuff and now like people don't have the physical aspect of the matchup. Like now that everything is online, I think that there's something to be said about, hey, we're being watched in front a bunch of people for real. There's something to be said about that person is physically right next to you. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
It adds a whole nother dimension to it because a lot of people are good between the screen and I think, you know what I'm saying? But not with that real life. That'll change somewhat. So you'll see that the best people mentally break when that scenario happens. Or even think about Evo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Think about when it's different when you're doing online and we're playing each other. But now we're in the theater. Now you're next to that person. And I watch those events and I see who could do it and who can't do it. It's very interesting when you go to these live events and stuff too.
That's a great point. Yeah, us growing up, right? We were playing in the mall or in the bodega. Yes. We lose with our head hanging low. We got to walk out of that place.
Yeah,
everybody laughing. We can hear them laughing down the block, pointing fingers.
Yeah,
right. We got to go back. We got to like be with those people the next day when we try again. Like it's a whole thing. It was our world.
Yes,
you know. Yeah, it wasn't just kind of relegated to that one forum or God forbid online where you don't. I had to give up, even with Street Fighter. Like I never really even got into Street Fighter 6 because I would get so riled up with Street Fighter 5 and I was just losing to like mediocre players. And I was like, wow, I am not. It would take me weeks to get back into fighting form. You know, and I just couldn't do it as much as I enjoyed it. And I found myself like it was a bad competitiveness too, because not only because I was on the losing side perpetually, but because there was no reason to even frustrate myself. Like I just wasn't up to the task. My skills were just I was way too rusty.
Yeah. You know what's required for you to get back. And you know how much that's gonna take out of you, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, all right, you know, at this point, I think I'm satisfied with where I'm at. I don't need to, because in order to be the best, you're gonna have to put in that work.
Forget
I call it the dojo time. Like you got to take your lumps. That's just how it is. Until you get back.
Yeah, cue Rocky training montage, right? Like I'm not climbing to the top of the mountain. There's no fucking way. You're not hitting me with the bag in my belly and like, you know, I'm not dragging airplanes through the desert and shit. I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? I can't do it. But yeah, that was a good one, dude. I really enjoyed you guys' discussion with that. I am satisfied.
Yeah.
And Ben, saved yours for last. I think this is a fun one. One of those ones I'm kind of shocked it hasn't come up, but I definitely have. I have thoughts, but I know I'm particularly entertained knowing that you're going to throw a little shade at this topic, and I'll let you take it away.
My topic is daylight saving time. And I know this is a much contested, you know, thing, and this has a place in our society, you know, years and years ago. And some people would argue it still does. And maybe there are some benefits that I don't necessarily, you know, fully understand to some people. But by and large, I hate it. There's a couple things. One, a lot of my friends and interactions are with people in other time zones. As we increase, you know, our global connectivity, that means I'm talking to, playing games with, interacting with people who are not in my, you know, necessarily time zone or even country for pretty commonly. Lockmorn in particular, I talk to Lock pretty much every day, either by text or by voice or both, or we play a game together or something. And it's always a weird time whenever, you know, it goes from we're 5 hours apart to we're 6 hours apart to are we 8 hours apart now? Like we never know. And then it changes for both of us at different times. And that's not just the case with Locke. You know, there's people that I talk to in even other states. You know, there's some regions that don't really participate in daylight saving. And they, I get confused on who that is and whatever. And so maybe that's just my mental, incapability of being able to reconcile all that, whatever. That's fine. You could make that case and maybe you'd be right. But the other thing is that I just don't know that it has a real purpose at this point, other than the fact that we've always done it. So let's keep doing it. And you could make a case that, yeah, we should do it for this reason, or the school kids or whatever. I don't care. I'm an adult and it doesn't affect me. I have kids. It doesn't affect them. The only thing that it does is makes it get dark earlier. And I know that some people are early morning people. So maybe, like my wife, she loves when the sun starts getting up earlier, starts coming up earlier, even though it's technically just the time change, because she likes to get up early. But guess what? She complains when the sun goes down earlier too. So it's a double-sided coin here. Or what's the phrase I'm looking? It sucks is what the phrase is. No matter who you are, you hate it. Now I know I'm someone who likes to stay up all through the night, and the sunrise doesn't really affect me. And even as someone who, I painted the wall behind me black for recording and stuff. I have blackout curtains on my blinds. I generally don't really just love being outside and everything. But the fact that the sun sets so much earlier, especially during my waking hours, affects me on this would happen with or without daylight saving time. Don't get me wrong. But it's so much different when it starts to be dark at 4:00 as opposed to 9. And part of that is just the way that the region I live in and everything like that. I understand it. But the fact that it affects me mentally so much, I don't know that I have seasonal affective disorder or whatever, if that's even a real thing or just something we've created in the 21st century to diagnose why we're sad when it's dark outside. I don't know. But if it's a real thing, I have it. I don't like getting all choked up. Give me a second.
The tears are coming. There we go. That's what I was waiting for.
That's what did it. That's what did it.
Oh, I've always had a raspy throat. My voice has just always sounded like this. It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter if I clear my throat, whatever. That's just how I sound. So sometimes that affects me in a way that I think maybe I should get on disability now that I don't have a job.
There you go.
That was not meant to be a joke towards people who actually have a disability. But anyway, so I hate it. I hate when it's dark, even though I don't necessarily want to go outside and enjoy the light. I'll happily stay inside and watch TV or whatever, hang out with my family, whatever. But it does affect me that I look outside and it's just dark out there.
Yeah.
And it also probably, correlates with it getting cold, and I don't like being cold. I used to joke with the old ladies that I worked with at a college, and they would always, it didn't matter if it was sunny, they complained it was hot. If it was raining, they complained it was raining. If it was snowing, they complained it was snowing. If it was fall, they complained that there were too many leaves on the ground. It didn't matter what was happening. They would complain about it no matter what.
That's not good.
And I would always tell them hey, do you know why I don't ever complain about the heat so that I can complain twice as much about the cold? So you need to, follow along with that and just stop complaining about every season, no matter what. It was mostly done in joking, but also it was true. So I don't know. I hate daylight saving time. I hate it partially because of the way that it affects, the timing of our environment around us, the light, the lack of light. I hate the fact that it messes up schedules between people. I hate the fact, it's nice now here in the 2020s, all of our calendars and our phone and everything else like that, they all adjust automatically. You rarely, if I set an appointment for when the time changes for 2:00, it's going to be for not 2:00 on today's time. It's going to be at 2:00 on that time. So the technology does the work for us. It didn't a few years ago. And by a few years ago, I mean 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, right.
That's not as much of an issue now, but it's still confusing. It still sucks, especially when you're dealing internationally, as many of us are, and stuff like that. So I want to know what you guys think about it. First of all, I think it's just, at this point, it seems pointless to me. I understand that at least one of the arguments is that it used to be used for, a more agrarian society where we needed the daylight for people to be able to grow their crops and get out there and everything. But on the other hand, even if that is the case, why does everybody have to fall? Why do we have to all suffer? And I know that there's parts of I think Arizona doesn't really recognize it.
Oh, I never knew that.
I could be wrong on where, but I know there's like specific regions where they're like either countywide or statewide or whatever.
Look it up.
They're just like, yeah, we're not doing that. Sorry. We're not going to do that. And I respect it, but also that kind of sucks too, because then they're the weirdos. Like you can, whatever time zone you're in, if somebody says that time, you still have to accommodate the fact that you're not observing daylight saving.
Yeah, that's odd.
What do you guys think about it? Do you dislike it or are you wrong? Dagan, I'll let you go first since I think you're probably more of a morning person than Cog or I have ever even thought about being. Even if you're not a morning person, I guarantee you're more of a morning person than Cog or I.
Yes, definitely.
I don't know if I ever knew.
The latest hours.
I don't know if I knew that about you guys, that you were so nocturnal.
Oh,
I never.
I'm not out.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I've talked about this with Maddie too, but a lot of times I'll be still awake, at 4 or 5 o'clock, and I'll look over at Discord and see like their names still
lit up
green, playing a game or something.
Yep.
I'm like, that's my brothers right there. I know.
We're not hours.
We're gonna wake up in half an hour.
Yep.
Like, I'm still awake. I'm just going to bed.
Oh yeah. Look what I sent my message to this Stelly. Look at the time. I said,
yeah.
No, you know what? I fancy myself as kind of a nocturnal person. I always have, but that's making me look like a morning person. I can't make it, even if I ever could make it past 3 o'clock. I very rarely did that, even as a younger person. Like, I'll stay up to 2 sometimes, but which in my house or compared to my wife is very much a nocturnal person. But yeah, not to those degrees. But I could see that. Like, first of all, I think seasonal depression is definitely a real thing. Yeah. I think it definitely has a psychological effect on people. And I could see, especially for those of us who are nocturnal, like when it gets dark at 4:30, that's a big contrast from when it's getting dark at 8:45, 9 o'clock in the, at the summit of the summertime. So that's a big thing. Personally, my overarching feeling is this. I like the contrast. At least where we're at right now. And I think typically on a year, I'll feel like this, like in December, when it gets dark early, there's a coziness to that, especially late in the fall, if not the winter, where there's like a coziness for me. It reminds me of growing up and eating dinner with my family where it's dark, when it's dark outside. And there was something really cool about eating at, 8:40 at night on the deck in the summertime barbecue with family too. But this is like different vibes that I think is very Northeastern. The trees are barren. The sky looks a certain way.
Yeah, like shit. It does look a certain way. You're right. It looks like shit.
I love his.
It does, and you know what? It's not. It's true. It's more of it's an atmosphere, but it's not necessarily a pretty atmosphere. It's just a very it's nostalgic. I guess that's really what it is. Like I'll take. It's like the seasons. It's like another thing. I kind of like a little bit of all of it. I like that we have all of it. I think that's how I feel about it. And you know what? I think daylight savings is kind of like. For me, I'll take the blow because it's a payoff. Like in the spring, time goes really fast for everybody, right? That's the overarching sentiment. Everybody's like, time's moving way too fast. Now in the spring, what is it? The second Sunday in March, we're losing an hour. That sucks. But I'll take it because I love the payoff of that first Sunday in November where it feels like time is fleeting and like there's not enough hours in the day. All of a sudden we get an extra hour. It's like, I love that bonus. I love the feeling of getting that bonus. Yeah. It's like kind of cool. Like an hour, that'll really help. I think we were in Georgia on vacation on a college tour, however many weeks ago that was this year. And we didn't even know it was coming. Like that happens to my family a lot. Like we were literally sitting in the hotel room, I think the night before we were flying back to Philly. And we're like, oh shit. Like we get an extra hour tonight. Like we can sleep in. We don't have to be at the airport super early. So there's always that little payoff thing, which I get, but I understand. Like that's a big, it's funny. Like I didn't hear it that much. I didn't hear people belly aching about it so much when I was younger, but I think because it feels like time is going so fast right now, it adds insult to injury. It's like it's dark at 4:30, for those of us who were really nocturnal. I mean, I think of like Colin and Michael, like maybe not so much Michael, but Colin doesn't get up till 1 o'clock. He makes that very publicly known, right? That gives him 3.5 hours of daylight. It's like living in Alaska. You know what I mean? Like that's would be hard. now you think about contrasting growing up in the Northeast or on the East, on the Eastern Seaboard, where you have in the summertime, you have hours and hours of daylight, so that shift is jarring for people. I get it. But for me, it's just kind of like, I don't know. It just feels normal. I never lived anywhere else. I never had it any other way. It's been 51 years of this or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's like, it doesn't bother me as much. But am I wrong? Did I hear something in passing that Donald Trump is fixing to pass a bill on this?
I was going to comment on that. Yeah, this is actually a timely discussion that he wants to get rid of it.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Paul, he's the kind of guy who just is going to do what he can to do what he says. Even if you like him or don't like him, he's bullheaded enough to try to actually do what he says. Like, he's so stubborn. So whatever your opinion on Donald Trump is, I don't care. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is that politicians have been talking about getting rid of daylight saving for 30 years at this point. There's been multiple bills that have been.
You're right.
I mean, maybe executive order will take care of it. I don't know, but it's been discussed so long that I just don't have any hope of it ever actually happening.
I wonder.
There's got to be some multi-billion-dollar company out there like, we really like daylight saving. Like our CEO really likes it, so we're just going to keep lobbying for it. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys think, though? What's the consensus? Would more people be pro or would more people be anti?
I think kind of what Ben is saying. It's got to be energy and business related. That one. I think the inception of it was to save more energy in general. So I think that's part of it. But I'm sorry if I didn't want to interrupt if you were finishing your thought because I was going to go.
Oh, not at all. I want to kick it over to you. I'll just say before I forget, I looked it up real quick, and this is kind of glossing over it a little bit, but Arizona, Hawaii, and several U.S. territories do not observe daylight savings time.
Oh, wow.
Arizona, with the exception of the Navajo Nation. Are the only
that's
two.
Even more confusing.
That is.
If you're in the Navajo Nation, you're like, I got to be at the DMV at 2:00. Oh, you missed your appointment. Sorry.
That is weird.
In Hawaii, it's like, we don't do daylight saving time. You live in paradise.
That's true.
You don't need to.
That's actually a really good point.
Yeah, no, it's a good discussion. I mean, it's
daylight.
Bro, I've never seen you hate something more than this. This is the best hate I'm getting from you. I love it. I love the passion. No, I think for me, I'm indifferent. I get both sides of the argument. There's a part of me that, first of all, I don't like obviously we don't like the shifting, right? Okay, now as we lose it and we get it. Now I will agree with Dagan. There is a bonus check feel when you get that hour back. You're like, all right, we get the hour. But I do agree with Ben in the sense that one of the more depressing things for me, even though I am a night owl, which is weird to say, it is depressing when you're like, damn, it's 4 or 5 o'clock. It is dark already. Like, you feel you've lost the day. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like, man, there's not enough hours in the day. And that was something about when you see it dark that early, it really affects me. It does. You know what I mean? And even being a night owl, but it's something about when it's morning and you get things done during the sunlight hours and you're like, okay, I still got a lot of day left. And I just think about summertime and like, going out and stuff like that and having fun and feeling like you got more day left kind of thing. So, it's a good discussion. I mean, if it goes away, right? If politicians get it to that point where it goes away, there is some health benefits though, because from the standpoint of to call it the circadian rhythm of your body of when you go to sleep or at the same time, so some health people say, hey, there's a benefit of having that stability with it and not having it, shift. I don't know how deeply it would affect you health wise just by switching that, an hour. But I know what you're saying, Dagan, because we're so conditioned to what has been our normal.
Yeah.
That has been our normal, right? Okay, it's time to do it, kind of thing. But there is a part of me that's like, if it goes away, like, will we be all right? We'll just be fine, kind of thing. So again, indifferent, but I do struggle with if it does go away, but I do struggle with the weirdness of the way when it becomes nighttime at an earlier time. That does feel weird.
It does. It definitely does.
It does feel weird. So Either way, I'll adapt. I'll figure it out.
It's foisted on us. I mean, I think that bothers people too. And sometimes it feels like, why? Just because it's always been like, there's that question of like, why can't we just change it? But for me, I think there's another thing that's very, very Dagan-esque in its nature is like, I think I like this time of year and the short days that we're having in let's say December, because when it gets dark at 4:30, it's something that lazy Dagan can embrace, because like I have to go out and rake the rest of the leaves, but I guess I can't because it's dark outside. Like it's an excuse to be lazy, where if we had 4 or 5 hours more daylight, I have to get out there or I'm going to feel guilty. You know what I mean? So it feels like that old timey settler thing of like, okay, we prepared for this time of year. Now we're going to hibernate. You know what I mean? And that's just because I'm lazy as shit. Especially when it comes to owning a house. Like I really have no business owning a house this big and this much property, and like I don't want to do it, and I can't afford to have someone do everything, so I have to. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's just, and I think that's another thing of like just embracing like, having that excuse to not, you know what I mean, just be a little more deliberate than I am in the spring and summer, where it's like. It's expected, to go outside, and I can't be lazy. Now, once I get out there, I'm fine. I'm a bad starter, but like, I'm just thinking about like, I still have leaves on my lawn and it's just like, I'm probably the only house on the block that has that. And it's just like, by the time I'm done with this and by the time I'm done with work, I'm not going to be able to get out there. And I kind of like it. I kind of like it, dude.
I'm for it.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Cog, you compared getting that extra hour to getting that bonus check.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people, I've never done this, but a lot of people just like, oh, I'm just going to blow my bonus check because it's free money. I always just blow that extra hour. I'm just like, well, I'm just staying up later. Like I'm not gonna go to bed earlier just because the time changed. That's great. I'm just staying up to when I would stay up. Give me a break.
I feel that.
That is great. I don't know. Ben, I have to say, I don't know that many parents that do that. And you have younger kids than I have. That's hard, but you've always been the same. You've always been very nocturnal by nature, I'm guessing.
By nature, yeah. I mean, there have definitely been times, when I worked on a golf course, I had to be up at 4 a.m. And when I worked at the college, sometimes I'd have to be at an appointment multiple hours away at 8 a.m. or whatever for people
doing
school stuff. But I've always been more minded that way. Like, to some extent, I've been bad to myself and not treated myself well because I would prefer the happiness that being up in the middle of the night when I'm awake brings me over the health benefits and the mentality the next day. Like I'm thinking about me, right? What if I die in my sleep? I didn't get to it's like I've heard the joke before, like people eat their dessert before dinner because what if they die during dinner? They don't get to have the dessert. What if I die in my sleep? I had a few extra hours to spend doing what I wanted rather than going to bed early so I could get up earlier. Like,
yeah, I'll sleep when I'm dead type of thing. Yeah, I get that.
But I do recognize that being a night owl has harmed me in some ways in my life.
Oh, for sure.
But never professionally, never. I mean, I've always done what I needed to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
And being a parent, I will say, sometimes that's the time. If you need some me time,
that's 100%. Yeah,
kids are in bed.
I'd like to say that's when it started, but really it's just that I've always been a night owl. And now that I'm a parent, like and my wife goes to bed early. So like every night when like 10 o'clock hits, maybe 11 some nights, I know I'm just alone.
Yeah.
Even though I'm in my office when I'm working and the door's closed and nobody's in here, whatever, there's something different about knowing that I'm not neglecting anyone and I'm not whatever because they're all asleep. And then in the morning, if I sleep a little later than them, they're all busy with stuff. The kids are doing school and Emily's doing, well, she homeschools them. So she's doing school too.
Oh, I forgot you guys did that. Yeah.
So like, it's not like not like I sleep in all day or anything, but like I'm not missing family time or anything because they're doing things. And then I usually get to work and spend time in the evening, afternoon, like most people do, and then they go to bed and I'm up still. So, and that's why, I mean, I'll work any shift because I can, but that's why for so long, like I haven't minded having to work at night to an extent. Being up till 7, 8 a.m. has sometimes not been my favorite thing, but it pays off because I'm already, it'd be different if I were somebody who had to get up at 8 a.m. every day, but because I'm able to be flexible, or at least to this point in my life, I have been, I like working a little more at night in the evening than I do.
I hear that. Me too, actually.
That happened to me too. Yeah. It was one of my first time I ever took a night shift job later in my IT career. And I was like, all right, and the guy was trying to sell me the pitch on the job. And I was like, all right, let me see what's going on. And he was like, yeah, it's third shift. But then it was a caveat. He was like, third shift, but you only work 4 days a week.
Oh, that's nice.
I was like, ooh. That's so it was like 4 10-hour shifts. I was like, all right. And I did that for about 5 years. And I fell in love with it. I was like, oh, I'm a night shift person. And then it's something, I think me and Maddie had this discussion. Something about at nights, I have my best thoughts. You, like you said, Ben, to yourself. And I don't know, I just really loved it. Just the hardest adjustment was, okay, mentally sleeping during the day. And then the greatest invention, the blackout shades. I was like, yes, now I can simulate night during the day. I'm fine. But I love that job. I was literally depressed when that job was. I was like, man, because the company eventually went under after a couple of years, where they got absorbed or whatever it was. But I really loved that job, and I was still efficient. I got things done, and I feel creatively some of my best ideas when I have that alone time, and it's just me, and I love it.
Why not take this opportunity to go back to that, Cog? You're looking now.
I'm open. I've always said, I'm like Ben, hey, employers, say, hey, I have no problem with third shift. Like third shift is once that first year of the adjustment was just tough because all my life it was always, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But when I did that, I think it was a 10 to 7 or whatever it was I was doing. Oh man, I was like, I love this. I absolutely love this. Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to night shift work again.
Holler at our boy out there. Come on, you guys. Holler. Holler at
the IT stuff is the market's going to start to shift right.
It definitely
2025 is what I'm hearing. From people I trust. So it'll shift back.
I think so, for sure. And what you guys say about being a night owl. I know I'm a more mild night owl than you guys are, but there's something from my experience with this just night owls that I've known. It's so deeply woven into a person's fabric. Like, my mother-in-law's a night owl. She's in her late 70s. And Helene gets upset with her because she's like, Mom, you need to go to bed. You need to start, you know what I mean? You need to like hold on to your health. You need to take better care of yourself. I tell Helene that she can't. Like, that's just who she is. You can't. That's when, like you guys are saying, maybe she gets things done. She feels productive. She's very much a nurturer, even though she's got an empty nest. Like, she's looking over the 3 girls and everybody else comes first, the grandkids. Like, that's when somebody like that does for themselves. You know what I mean? But when everybody else, you know what I mean? Because everybody comes first, right? The husband, the 3 girls, the grandkids, the neighbors, close friends, her social circle, everybody else comes first. And that's when she could look after herself or, watch YouTube videos, have a cup of tea. Like, she's never going to, try to tell Helene, because Helene's not a night owl. She just never has been. It's just like, that's a person's nature. Like, you love to harness your mornings.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And you love to eat, like Helene makes me laugh because she's tiny and she rolls out of bed and just eats. She could eat a lumberjack breakfast before her eyes are open. I'm like, how is this possible? How does that even work? You know what I mean? She doesn't only get up at the crack of dawn when she doesn't have to, but she's already like chowing down breakfast and she's ready to go. It's like a Marine. It's crazy, but it's just, I think that's just, those habits is part of like your nature. Yeah. And you know what I mean? It's hard to break with that. Fairly tough. So yeah, daylight savings, man. I mean, I do wonder if they change it, how it would be. I mean, I'd be totally fine with it, to be honest. I mean, it doesn't get that much. It's still going to get darker earlier. It's just that you're not going to have that artificial hour added and subtracted on either end, right? It's not that big of a deal. But I understand, like, why it bothers people, and it'll be interesting to see how that happens. Maybe Donald Trump. I mean, you say what you want about Donald Trump, but he loves disrupting. He's got that disruptive energy. He wants to change something. you know, not that that's just for the sake of changing something. You know, I could see its benefits.
Yeah.
But that'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see
And
what
Ben
happens.
can smile again.
Right.
He can have his DST.
We'll see. I don't know if that's going to help me smile or not, but
the upside,
Remember, I don't
right?
show
Get grown
emotion.
man tears from you then.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll make them. Yeah, right. Yeah, tears of joy. Could work. That now the upside of that is like from the rhythm of it, the way it works. If I'm not mistaken, the shortest day, right? It's already getting longer incrementally. So once you hit that rock bottom, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. In other words, if you don't like it, right? So
but the shortest day comes before the coldest day. So you still got that to look forward to.
Hold on, I'm just gonna push my door shut.
No, you good. Yeah, no, I hear where you're coming from, man.
Are you staying in?
I didn't realize you hated it that much. I had no idea you hated it that much. I love the discussion, though. I love it.
Yeah, I do hate it. A little bit of it is just hamming it up, of course, obviously, like we talked about earlier, but I really just don't. I don't see the point. Yeah. I don't get it. I don't personally like it. Therefore, it must be garbage, right? That's how we all think, right? So that's where I'm at with it.
I wonder if it's like some kind of psychic to like boost people's mood in the fall. Like, right? Like everybody's already optimistic, spring, right? Everybody's already got that energy, so they could take the hit of losing the hour, right? Because you're springing ahead, so you're losing the hour. Fall, maybe it's like that energy boost of like everybody's mood could be, you know what I mean, getting that hour. Isn't that great? Yay. You know, that type of thing. It's like this, it's just this artificial mood sort of like modifier that
artificial is the right word because it ain't real.
It's really not. There's like really like some 1984 like dystopian energy to the whole thing. But you know, maybe who knows? I don't know. You know what though? I also have that thing of like I like a little chaos. Like I would change it just to see how people deal with it because it's funny. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, change it just to shake things up a little bit, make it exciting. You know, a 50-year-old's been dealing with this for 50 years. How's it going to feel if we don't have it? You know, good or bad, it would be kind of it'd be interesting. Oh, yeah. Right.
I don't think anyone would notice really. Honestly, if it were changed,
I think you're probably right.
And in less than one generation, people would forget it ever existed.
So
look how well we've adapted to everything else as a culture.
It's true.
Yeah.
We got drones flying over that. We were just like, all right, I guess this is the new normal. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We were worried the first week. Now it's like, oh, there's the drones. Yeah. Just like,
I mean, if you think about anything in our lives that has changed.
No, literally.
What's that going to be like? YouTube literally didn't exist less than 20 years ago.
No.
I've been podcasting almost as long as YouTube has existed. And now think about the impact it has on our lives.
It's insane.
Daylight saving has less of an impact on our lives. It would have less of an impact. It would take less time for it to have less of an impact, in my opinion.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. Which I think you're saying is all the more reason to change it, right? Because it's like no one's going to notice anyway.
Get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
What I'm saying. Yeah,
I know what you're saying. Every time I think of YouTube, I know I've brought this up at least once on the podcast. I think of that dad that I don't know that well around the block at the bus stop who said to me one morning, "Can you believe all the kids watches YouTube?" And of course, I felt like saying that's all I watched too. It's probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I know I haven't seen that dad. I know damn well all he watches right now is YouTube 5 years later.
Yeah.
And I just want to go back to that conversation and be like, dude, remember what you said?
Remember
type of thing. But you're right. Yeah. That's how fast things change.
Yeah, things change.
It's incredible. Mm-hmm. And we accept it. Right? Mm-hmm. So, Ben, what do you think, my friend? Is that, did we do your top?
More than enough. More than enough.
Not until it's changed.
Right.
For good and all. I know. You know what's funny? This has been a very short episode. Very meaningful conversations. Last episode that we did, was it last week? Mm-hmm. I think with Micah and Gene, I want to say. Longest 3-man episode we've done so far. We went like 4:15 on it.
Oh, wow.
Now that might be some Gene Park energy there.
Oh, Gene can get his balls on. He'll tell you some stories too. Gene will tell you what happened, a moment. Gene has stories for day. I love Gene.
He had such good ones last week.
Stories.
You guys haven't heard that. Go listen to Gene. But I think this is coming up against maybe one of the shortest three-man episodes. But listen, quantity and quality, that's two different things, right? Substance, that's all that matters.
Substance.
Listen, I think as long as we have we serve the if we're cutting it short because we want to be done, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But I think when people are mad about short episodes, it's because they're lonely at work. That's not my problem. I'm just kidding.
What's it? My truck drivers, my CDL guys.
Yeah.
They go to cross. It's like, man, they love when they see that time stamp. They're like, oh, it's gonna be 3. I get it. I get that.
And then all the people who are like, I love 5-hour episodes. They're like, I also listen on 2.5 times speed.
That's crazy.
I don't believe you.
That's getting into the weeds for me. I can't even with that. You know, what I say about this episode is just listen to this one twice. Everything we said was so good.
Yeah, that's right.
Listen to it 2 times.
If you felt like it was missing something, just wind your clocks back an hour and tell me how much you like it that time.
On that note, I'm going to say goodbye to you. First of all, happy holidays to everybody out there.
Yes.
If you hear this before Christmas, if you hear this and/or before New Year's, happy holidays to you and yours. Happy holidays to my boys here. I'm going to say goodbye, starting with Ben. Ben, happy holidays to you.
Thanks, Ben.
Heading into the weekend. Christmas is still, at the time of this recording, we still got another 5 days or so.
Yeah, that's true.
What's going on with you? What's going on with your tribe out there? Plans, all that stuff.
I think we got a friend coming in out of town tomorrow. I hang out with them a little bit. It's one of my dad's oldest friends, like from junior or from like elementary school. But I've grown up knowing him and everything. So I think I'm gonna try to see him. And then I don't really know. You know, we've got a Christmas at some point with my family, Christmas at some point with Emily's family on different days. We've got some church stuff. I'm not sure what we're doing for what. We got a regular service probably on the normal day, and then the Christmas Eve service, and I don't know. I don't know. I honestly leave a lot of that stuff to my wife to just tell me when to show up and what she needs help with, and I do it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Makes sense. It's busy.
Yeah,
busy time of year. You know what? I was thinking about you guys, you and Dustin, because I think I'm gonna take the family to Pittsburgh to see a Yankees game. They're playing interleague against the Pirates in 2025, maybe June. Don't quote me. I knew it, but I forgot. It's a weekend series, though. And so we're going to go out. Never been. It's PNC, right? PNC Park?
Yes, PNC. I've been. Beautiful park.
It's supposed to be beautiful.
Beautiful. I still have pictures of myself there. I love that.
Oh, dude. Did you see the Mets play there?
Yeah, Detroit, but it was a couple of years ago, and I enjoyed the experience around the stadium.
You know it's rough when the Pirates beat your team. Like
I knew I was going bad. It was bad. It was a bunch of years ago, but I love that the scenicness of it's just beautiful, and then that area to outside to eat and stuff, and I really enjoy PNC.
It's supposed to be the shit. Yeah, that's good to know.
It's a good park. I really liked it.
Say what you want about the Pirates. Easily the best throwback uniforms in all of Major League Baseball, not just National League. Yeah. They got the best throwback.
They do.
So we're going to see you guys.
Nice.
We're going to see you guys.
Yeah, hit me up. You got my number?
100%.
Yeah, I got to hit you up too. I didn't know I share a team with you, man. I like the Pens.
Nice.
Yeah, I like the Pens. I actually blame video games for getting me into hockey.
Oh, yeah. I think I've heard you talk about that before.
Yeah, it was literally NHL. And I was just like, all right, look. I'm like, I like this number 66 and this number 68. And I was like, I learned the whole sport of hockey through NHL, like 93 and then 94. And I was just like, this is amazing. Yeah. So,
oh my God, Colin will be so proud of you.
Lemieux for death.
Cog, I got to keep it baseball with you for a second. Are you sure, as a Mets fan, before we go out,
let's go.
You don't want to rub a little salt?
Oh, yeah.
In the Juan Soto wounds?
Oh, yes. It felt so good. It was the first time little brother punched back. And I was just so happy because we never get a superstar player.
I know.
In his prime. We always get the aging, guy that off his name recognition. So yeah, it was a surprise. I'll be honest. I was very surprised that he chose us because part of it is like, yeah, of course it's money. We all know it, the contract. But he did choose. I thought for sure, hey, go back to the Pittsburgh. You guys went to the World Series.
Yeah.
So to see that, I was very surprised, and I gotta salute to Cohen, man. Cohen is his determination to spread in the team, unlike the Wilpon, aka Coupon era, that we as Met fans cannot stand. So we're glad that's over. And I just love the fact that Cohen's a Met fan. He's a Met. He's a rich guy with money, and he's gonna do what he's got to do for a team that he loves, and we love it so far. But now now the pressure's on. Now we got to win.
Yeah, and you know what? This is a guy that could help him win. I know. Say what you want about Soto. That guy. I know he's not, he's a mediocre player, but he is a magical hitter. He
absolutely
can't miss. I mean, I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, superstar, man. So I'm excited. I will say, as a sports radio guy in New York, it was hilarious listening to New York sports radio, especially like Yankee radio. And I was listening to them process and go through it. And I was loving it. They're not used to not having and getting everything they want.
I know, but it's so
interesting to hear. As the have-not, I was just loving this.
Oh, man, you guys are perpetually in that shadow. I think Yankees fans need to be empathetic. I mean, yeah, a lot of sour grapes energy. I thought that would only last for like 48 hours, but it was like ridiculous. Some of it was actually quite kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, give them. They went out and got them. Yeah. You know what I mean? They competed. They got, and you know what? It freed up a lot of payroll. The Yankees are going and getting pitching now. It's exciting.
Yeah, you guys are making, I think, honestly, a more rounded team.
I love it
as a result. So
give me the pitching.
The Yankees are going to be fine.
They're going to be just fine.
Yeah, we got nothing to worry about.
We're going to be just fine, and it'll be a little exciting a crossover in the Queens. Now. We have something to watch.
Crazy.
Something to watch in Queens.
Oh yeah.
It's fun. That's fun. All right, I wanted to give you the opportunity to get my goat.
Thank you. You know, rare Met W. I got to take it.
What else?
When I get to Pitt, I'm trying to get to. I've never been to a Penguin game. So
nice.
Yeah, so I got as my sports pilgrimage. One of my friends, DJ, when we had the Butler event, he lives out there. He tried to get me. So when I schedule it, I'm gonna hit you up.
All right, yeah, hit me up for sure. Yeah. Maybe even let me know before you buy tickets in case I'm able to go. But
absolutely.
Yeah, I was at the. I mean, I've been to lots of games, but I was at the last game at the Mellon Arena and the first game at the new arena. And the old one, it had its charm, but the new one is so nice. And there's not a bad seat in the house. It's great.
I love that.
I got to do that.
I love that. That's cool. Cog, and also just I don't want to take up your goodbye time with Mets Yankees talk. Is what else you got for me going into the holidays? We've got a couple of weeks left of 2024. Not even.
Yeah, man. Just like I said, just taking advantage of the rest. Obviously, happy holidays to both of you. Enjoy with your families and stuff like that. I'm probably going to see King at some point in the fam and go over there and see that side. And probably might see one of those movies. I don't know, maybe the Sonic movie or something. Take the Sonic make them laugh. So I'm thinking about that. But to be honest, I'm just looking forward to downtime and actually gaming and. I've been actually getting better rest. That's another thing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the new year, man. 2024 was a bit rough, but it's on a personal life. But I'm looking forward to 2025. I'm excited, man. And this year was fun as far as from a creator standpoint, though. A lot of stuff and obviously events and hanging out with you guys and stuff like that. But I am ready to set the new year off.
There you go. New year, new slate.
That's it.
That's how it works, man.
Yeah, man.
That's how it works. Listen. The other thing is, let me look Kiki out of the studio. Hold on.
There you go.
All right, goodbye.
He's ready. Yeah, right.
Not to be interrupted by my faithful Crypto the Wonder Dog back there.
Love it.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys this. If you don't mind talking about it, we don't have to get off on a whole big thing, but I'm genuinely curious. Mm-hmm. Give me each. I haven't played many video games this year, but I'm always tuned in to what's going on. I just never really got my hands on. Not since March, probably. What was the game of the year for each one of you guys?
Start with Ben. I haven't heard his.
I recorded my session with Brad yesterday talking about game of the year, and I said that my top three were like interchangeable, depending on the way I'm feeling, depending on the thing. Yeah. But what I gave Brad, my number three was Astrobot. My number two was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. My number one was Balatro.
Very curious.
Nice.
What about you, Cog?
I mean, it's kind of a renaissance year, -1. So obviously, probably Tekken 8 was number 3 because again, I was just so impressed that they were able to knock it out the park and kind of brought the feels back. And graphically, it's amazing. But number 2 is my comfort food. Even though Bungie, I don't know about their future, Final Shape was literally their Avengers Endgame, and they really knocked it out the park. So I wanted to give them studios, the ones that remain from the Great Purge of Bungie. They did knock it out the park. And number 1 was a surprise to me. I just shout out to Matty. I felt him being a Persona fan. He walked so I could run. I love Metaphor. Metaphor hit me at the right time because it was kind of like everything that's going on in the world, and it's like, oh, there's a candidate, and you got, the kind of thing, and then this whole, virtues and all these different races of people. That gave some dark themes in it. I was like, all right, yeah. So Metaphor, man, I really enjoyed my time with it, and it actually has some moments that really challenged the hell out of me. And I'm not a Souls guy, but there was some moments in that was like the Souls of turn-based JRPG, like some aspects of optional stuff that was really
that crazy. Hard.
Well, I would say it's not mandatory, but it is a challenging game. If you have to manage your resources correctly, and it definitely encourages you to grind. It definitely encourages you because if you don't,
I love that.
Yeah, it'll be definitely tougher for you. But I loved Metaphor, and the music was fantastic.
It's everybody. It's made a lot of people's game of the year.
Yeah, it was a surprise. I really, they did a couple of things in it that I was just like, wow, this surprised me. They threw me I thought I knew what this game was. And I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing.
That's
this is cool. Yeah.
I think it would have made my list had I finished it. I've only got like 20 hours in it. Probably.
Man, it's so good.
But I'm looking forward to probably, I don't know. My schedule is pretty light for the next month or so at the very least. So I'll hopefully have some time to finish it up.
Yeah, I will say, Ben, don't get me, it was good in the beginning. Not saying it was bad, but it is one of those games that, like, all right, at the 40, I'm like, yo,
that's what I've heard.
Now it started. Yeah. Like, wow, okay, Metaphor. I was just gonna say opera, and when you get to that part, there was a scene. I was like, everything that led to it, and then the scene itself. That was a game of the year moment for me. I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. Yeah. Absolutely, and amazing voice acting. Oh my god, some of these voice actors.
Yeah, I've heard clips. It actually is quite good.
Absolutely,
yeah,
really good.
And I love when a game has the balls to do that. Like it simmers and then it gets hot late. And trust that you're going to go along for the ride. Shout out Atlas. Come on, man. They've been around for a long time. And I have really curious about that. But Astrobot, I have to play. Yeah, that's one that's I got serious FOMO.
That's so you. I could see that.
I gotta play it. I gotta play it. Make a little time for it. Yeah, I was just curious. I never really, I think all year I haven't really participated on many video game discussions. So yeah, I want to know what the experts are saying out there.
You, man. Yeah, hit that. Nice. About it, man.
Well, it was good to have both you guys. Grateful to you both. This is a great way to close out the year for Constellation. We'll see you both again in the new year before too long, of course. And that's it. We'll just go out with a little housekeeping before we say goodbye. The usual. Patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access. As always, come join us over there. Laststandmedia.store has the merch. Listen, I just realized I don't have a Constellation shirt. You could always buy me one, send it my way. Slide into the DMs. I'll give you the address.
If you literally just ask Micah for one, she'll send you one,
You are fond of that.
This is more fun. This is more fun. And that's it, guys. Listen, it's been a great year. Thank you for everything on LSM, especially with Constellation. Near and dear to my heart. We'll see you for more fun in the new year. Happy holidays to everybody. And that's it for Cog and Ben. I'm Dagster Moriarty saying thank you out there for joining us. You are appreciated, and we love you too. And I would say, I usually say, next week, same bat time, same bat channel, but it's going to be a couple of weeks. See you again in January. In the meantime, you can always go listen to your second favorite podcast. Now get out. Peace.
Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer Dustin Furman and is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.